Great God name.
Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible. We're going to push through to try to do 3 chapters today because Lorence, our resident scholar, says that is what must be done.
Yeah, I got a big thing, or not a big thing, but I have a thing planned for.
We've heard about you.
Show. You what?
Never
mind.
That's what you get
Down
with
boy.
with the topics we discuss in pre-shows.
I got a short presentation for numbers 22 through 24. So
okay.
I wanted to start off the show with that next time. So I think powering through is a good idea. So unless someone really leaves like something important out, I won't be saying much.
All right, so a quick introduction. For whatever reason, Matt, who interviewed me on his channel a couple weeks back, has decided to join us, has asked to join us. Matt, give us a quick rundown. What do you got behind you?
I've got a boa constrictor BCI here, female, and there's a male motley BCI down there. There's a rather beautiful albino BCI up there as well. There's a green iguana just in there temporarily because my wife broke the other cage. That's my wife's anyway, the iguana. What else have I got? I've got some corn snakes down there. I've got some milk snakes. Yeah. I've got
fucking
snakes.
Weirdo.
We need to get the brazen serpent.
He has less than how many hundred snakes do you have now, Aaron?
I've only got 63 or 64.
Only.
Okay, so who's reading today?
Since my commentary, I'm limiting my own commentary. I will be reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think that's only fair.
Yes.
All right. So we're starting off with chapter 19. And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "This is the statute of the teaching that the Lord has charged, saying, Speak to the Israelites, that they take you a perfect red cow that has no blemish, and on which no yoke has been put. And you shall give her to Eleazar the priest, and he shall take her outside the camp, and she shall be slaughtered before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger and sprinkle toward the front of the tent of meeting from her blood 7 times. And the cow shall be burned in his sight. Her hide and her flesh and her blood together with her dung shall be burned. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and crimson stuff and fling them into the burning of the cow. And the priest shall wash his garments and bathe his flesh in water. And then he may come into the camp. And the priest will be unclean till evening. And he who burns her shall wash his garments in water and bathe his flesh in water, and will be unclean until evening. And a clean man shall gather the cow's ashes and set them outside the camp in a clean place. And it shall become for the community of Israelites a thing to be kept as riddance water. It is an offense offering. And he who gathers the cow's ashes shall wash his garments and will be unclean until evening, and it shall be for the Israelites and for the sojourner who dwells in their midst a perpetual statute. He who touches a dead body of any human person shall be unclean 7 days. He shall cleanse himself with the ashes on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he will be clean. And if he does not cleanse himself on the 3rd day, on the 7th day he will not be clean. Whosoever touches a dead body, a human being who has died, and does not cleanse himself, he defiles the Lord's tabernacle, and that person shall be cut off from Israel, for riddance water was not thrown upon them. He is unclean. His uncleanness is still in him. So I'm going to cut it off there for now. So we have 2 major things to talk about, right? So first, the sacrificing of this cow, and then this kind of restatement, at least for us, since we've read through Leviticus, of this trend of cleanliness when it comes to dead bodies. And here they give a much more specific time period for when you should be washed and how long you are going to be defiled for.
3 days or 7 days if you don't.
Remind
observe
me
all the
never
correct
to
rituals.
attend a Jewish barbecue. They just don't know how to do it.
Well, in fairness, I mean, the Red Heifer, which P-Town brought up last week, or last show, which was technically last week, but only a few days ago, that is this big deal about this perfect Red Heifer that they will literally burn the entire thing to ash. I'm assuming by the waist they mean the entrails, including whatever stage of digestion anything is at. And yeah, and the ash specifically is the thing that has to be used for ritual and ceremonial reasons, which in fairness, many of the sacrifices do not involve burning a whole thing to ash. They'll take the meat and burn the fat or cook part of it, or maybe burn a small portion to ash on the altar for God, and the rest is eaten by the priests. This is not the case here. Dead bodies, basic bathing, probably a good idea, but ceremonial bathing is often somewhat less thorough than medical professionals would advise.
Yeah, I don't think it's considered like a sacrifice because they would have done this outside the camp as well. So,
or of a preparation of ceremonial.
Yeah, it's a purification ritual. Like every person who does something is also impure, and then they have to be purified or whatever. It's like
It's the first time with a female, right? I think this is this the first time there's a female sacrifice?
No, not at all.
We've had like female goats
in Leviticus.
and,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Female
sin
goat.
offerings all had to be female because we all have to pay the price for y'all's bullshit.
Or according to Philo, they are less complete than males. So
Yes,
Oh
of
yeah,
course.
that's always a fun one. Yeah.
Philo
Well,
and Freud, who imagined we all had penis envy.
I think there's also an idea that they're more expensive as well. But
yes,
then
yes,
why
I
a
said
goat?
this.
Why not a bull?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you only need one male sheep to service innumerable female.
Although I think the
So-
one major thing to note about the section is that this is one of the cases in which the priest is actually, through this rite, he kind of is defiled himself, which is why he has to purify himself afterwards, and so does the guy who, takes out the ashes, right?
Okay, so one I've got so Tomo asked me to read his commentary that he's put together, really nicely written out for me. So I'm going to do that. I just wanted to say, like, so in like the Jewish tradition, they kind of divide all of the commandments into kind of like different categories, and there's like moral laws that are like anyone would come up with, like do not kill, do not steal. And then there's like there's a few other categories, but the main one that we're talking about now is it's called it was translated as statute, but sometimes it's called a ritual law, whatever. They're kind of seen as laws that don't really have a rational reason, and they're only kept because God commanded it, and that's why we do it. We don't know what the reason is. And
So the
this is one of them.
ceremonies and rituals of the temple cult specifically, which wouldn't necessarily have any kind of moral justification for.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it considers like sacrifice as being a statute, because I guess they could rationalize it. It's more like things like so I think there's different lists I've seen. So I've seen besides this one, this is like this one is kind of, I mean, the name of this section is like statutes, chokot. A chok is the Hebrew word for it. And so the red heifer is like the main one. But there's also some will say like the laws of eating, certain what you're allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat, that's like not really rational. You shouldn't really be trying to figure out if it's based on health or anything. It's just a ritual law. And
because I said so.
Yeah, I think even like
I think I've been to a place called the Red Heifer that was a barbecue joint.
Were they any good?
I thought you were talking about the strip club.
There's also that. There's also
and then you got the drink.
There's that South Park episode, the ginger cow.
Oh
Ah.
yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that in so long.
All kinds of different blasphemy. Can I talk about Jesus?
This is the Old Testament.
Well, I have
Yes,
something
Jesus
about
is
it.
Well,
magic
we
and
got
everything
scarlet,
special
we
traces
got
back
the
to-
hyssop, we got the cedar wood.
Yes, we have the
unblemished,
blood magic.
cleanness,
Well,
we
actually,
have
life giver. Okay.
Actually, I
Blood
have
magic.
something about this.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Ah,
Isaac wants to read.
All right.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll start. So reason, I'm guessing this is reason for this
The
law
red-
or the red
Yes,
heifer.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So many rabbinical commentators wrote that there's no rational reason for this commandment. Rabbi Yossi ben Hanina in Numbers Rabbah 19:6 wrote that God told to Moses, "To you I shall disclose the reason for the heifer, but to anybody else it is a statute." Numbers Rabbah 19:3 tells that Solomon understood all the commandments, but regarding the red heifer, he said, "I thought I could fathom it, but it eludes me." Ecclesiastes 7:23. The author of Book of Education writes that although he attempts to give the simple reason for the commandments, for this one, my hands are weak and I am afraid to open my mouth about it at all. Christian tradition connects the red heifer with Jesus. Hebrews 9:13 through 14 and Barnabas 8:1-2. According to Bede,
Beat, yes.
okay, on the tabernacle 2:11, the burning of the red heifer designates the actual time and event of Jesus' passion, and the burnt ashes, which are used for cleansing, suggest the mystery of that passion. Pitan, you want to explain that? I don't understand it. I don't know what it means. What
Blood
is the mystery of
magic.
the passion?
It's the idea of Jesus suffering. Many will
Mhm.
say he suffered more than anyone else ever did, and that he is basically intended to be the embodiment of all previous forms of sacrifice, and anything else they can drag in from anywhere. So cleansing also, remember, this is blood magic. We are cleansed by blood. We are cleansed by Jesus's blood specifically, as many a disturbing hymn tells us, and a disturbing children's activity. Where
Okay.
What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. How precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. It's so wonderful. That's
Okay.
far from the only one.
Ah.
So again, the blood is cleansing. Jesus is the blood, but also in this rare instance, because the cow is burned to ash, and the ash is used in ceremonial cleansing, which allows for the establishment of a temple and a new high priest and all these other very important sacred ritual rite things. It's very unique, and it has to be perfect in a way that no other sacrifice is given this degree of. It doesn't really cover it here in Numbers. I believe it'll go over it again in Deuteronomy about how perfect it has to be. But basically that's the idea with Jesus, is that he was just so perfect, the only one, the special, unique one, who is the only one who could possibly do the magic blood sacrifice that would cleanse all of us dirty, filthy sinners, so that God, who is love, could stand to be in the same room with us without throwing up.
Okay, so in verse 2,
some of the
Oh.
patterns, though, I want to just point them out.
Yeah.
So the animal can't be yoked. And Jesus says, put your burden on me, something. Your burden's heavy, mine is light.
Take my yoke upon me
yeah.
and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So
Please continue.
With a cleansing ritual, it makes sense to use that.
Also, P-Town, I don't know what you're stroking, but it's so loud it's coming through the microphone.
All right, maybe I'm rocking my chair, but
It sounds like styrofoam.
Let me know if it stays that way. You guys still hear it?
That stopped.
Yeah, it stopped.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's still here.
No.
That kind of sounds more like background noise.
I'm not doing anything.
Now it's gone. Now it's
Maybe
gone.
it's
Yeah.
me. Hold on.
Is it
It
my
might have
wife
been.
It was like a fan or
upstairs?
something.
Is it my wife upstairs walking? I don't know.
How dare
If
she be
it-
walking?
If that's
Yeah.
the sound of your wife walking, you should have her checked out, P-Town. That's weird.
Okay. Oh, then Matt, did you have like a piece of food or something? Oh
Is
no,
it still making noise?
no, it's gone now. It's
Now,
completely
now it's gone.
I think that's me.
gone. Oh, okay, well.
No, it was P-Town because I could see his icon moving when the sound came up.
Oh.
All right.
Because
So we'll get into it. So you gave like a Jesus explanation. So verse 2,
Well, I just
Red
want to cover
Heifer.
a few things. You have the priest
Yeah.
shall take the cedar woods. You got the wood, the hyssop. The hyssop branch was used to feed Jesus the gall or the vinegar to drink. And then you have the scarlet wool. Jesus was coated with the scarlet robe at his crucifixion.
crimson robe.
That and a few
or
other
like
things, but
purple.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I had no idea. Yeah, it makes sense to use that imagery. I didn't even think about it. Yeah. So verse 2, Red Heifer without defect or blemish. Milgram and Levine note that the redness of the cow symbolizes blood and symbolically adds to the quantity of blood in the ash mixture. The red color seems to refer to brown. Okay.
Yeah,
the
like
Red
red brown,
Heifer.
yeah.
Oh, right.
Interesting. That is what old blood looks like, but
Yeah, and also when you see like we found a red cow, it's always more ginger, red brown.
yeah,
than it is, like,
red for a cow. It's not,
Yeah.
red.
The Red Heifer, translated from Perush, is assumed from the Septuagint, where it refers to a female bovine without knowledge of its age or if it was carved. Yeah, I think heifer in English normally refers to like a young female cow that hasn't had any children. We see in 1 Samuel 6:7 that a Perush could be carved, and so cow seems preferable. Rashi comments that the defect or blemish refers to the redness of the cow, so that even if it has 2 black hairs, it is unfit for the rite. While Milgram prefers this interpretation, since completely brown cows are extremely rare. Ashley, Levine, and Licht read it plainly that the cow has no defects. Defects based on the requirements in Leviticus 22, 23, 20 through 25, that the sacrificial victims have no blemish.
Yeah, but wasn't there something
yeah.
about maybe it's in Deuteronomy. I don't remember exactly. It was something about not having any curled hairs because it must have never borne a yoke or anything like a yoke at any point in time.
That might be something they learned out from it. Yeah, so has never been under a yoke.
Somewhere, I just can't remember. Yeah.
Milgram comments on the has never been under a yoke. No yoke has been laid. That is, it must not be used for profane purposes. This stipulation is made in Deuteronomy 21:3 and 1 Samuel 6:7, where the animals were not intended for sacrifice. Indeed, the rabbis teach that worked animals are not disqualified as sacrifices. Sefer Numbers 123. However, the firstling, a sacrificial animal, may not be worked. Deuteronomy 15:19. Thus, work animals probably could be
from the beginning. Yeah. Sorry.
Thus, work animals probably could be sacrificed, but no sooner were they consecrated as sacrificial animals that no benefit could be derived from them. The Hittites also regarded the working of sacrificial animals as a capital crime. So it was a common practice. Verse 3, Eliezer the priest, Ashley comments, the text does not say why Eliezer should be selected to deal with the matter rather than Aaron himself. Most commentators conclude that it is because it is unfitting for the high priest to deal with a dead body. Leviticus 21:11. Bud has posited that Eliezer is appointed to do this work because the high priest could not come out of the sanctuary. Leviticus 21:12, as has been mentioned already. However, Aaron was sent to stand between the dead and the living, Numbers 16:48, as the only one who could stop the plague. And this action clearly occurred outside the sanctuary. Perhaps stopping the plague is to be seen as a special case, done at the direct command of God himself.
I forgot we were mid another genocide. So many genocides. I get them mixed up,
We have a lot to cover.
You should read the Book of Mormon.
I'll let you do that. Thank you.
This is all from Tom Ayer's research. I did also want to mention that there is a rabbinical idea that the allusion is to the sin of the calf, of the golden calf. So it's a cow because it's the mother. It's like the mother of a calf. So, you should retribute
to the sin of the worship of El and the golden calves at damage.
Yeah. So it's like,
which were represented in the golden calf story. Yeah. Okay.
and it's kind of doing that. So since it's got something to do with the golden calf, Aaron was involved, so it would be unsuitable for him to be doing the first.
You love how everyone else involved is horrifically slaughtered, and Aaron is like, you can't do this one ceremony that involves like burning something to ash because tisk tisk, sir. Tisk tisk.
Yeah, maybe.
When I was reading about this, looking at one of the guys I like to follow, and I was watching a video a year and a half ago, and he was talking about the Texas red heifers that were shipped over. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out there because I haven't even looked into this, but like in the last episode that we did, all that stuff's gone silent right now. And it's strange that people would talk about it all the way coming up until when they're going to come of age, and then it's quiet.
That's not surprising at all.
Probably
They have
nothing.
Pairs, they're disqualified. They end up as barbecue, and nobody talks about it because that's depressing news for those who want the magic stick.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
somebody worked it, or maybe it had a blemish.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all of those those preachers, giving dates for the Armageddon, and then when that date passes, they're all quiet about it. Very similar.
How many until I get a free Armageddon? I have my card. It's completely full. How many till a free Armageddon? Christians should have to buy me drinks at this point.
Yeah, I'm not prophecy.
All right, I'll just continue with Thomas' commentary. So verse 4, towards the front of the tent of meeting, Sefer numbers 123 comments that he directs his gaze to the door of the sanctuary when he sprinkles the blood. Levine notes that this comment emphasizes the importance of the orientation or orchestration of this ritual. Thus, at the Second Temple period, the ritual was performed atop the Mount of Olives, which made it possible to view the entrance of the temple building. I don't know if there is archaeological finding for this, but there is I remember learning about that the temple, from the temple, like the eastern entrance, there was like a bridge that went straight to the Mount of Olives, and then on the Mount of Olives, at the end of the bridge was a platform, and that's where they would have done the ritual. So they would have had like a direct flight straight through, and also like the way that the stairs go up to the Holy of Holies, like the platform would have been the height, so they would see straight through, and like the height of the doors had to match so that you actually had a straight line view. Something like that.
Why does it have to be straight though?
No, you have to be able to see from.
Right. Well, these people also bought the land in the Mount of Olives.
Sorry?
These people actually bought the land, so they have the land ready.
Yeah, I don't know if the location directly across is used for anything or anything. I mean, there's a massive
I don't know if it's
cemetery now. Yeah. The whole mountain is a cemetery and has been for hundreds of years.
Who is rubbing what? What is that?
It's coming from P-Town, but we don't know.
Is it for sure? I've never had
Yes.
an issue.
Okay, P-Town, mute yourself.
Yeah, I can see it on his icon.
Let me unmute.
His icon is moving when the rubbing sound comes on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
It could just be the mic.
Yeah.
Could be like
doesn't-
the mic picking up like. Are you on your phone or on your?
Is it still there?
No, not right
It
now.
Stops.
stops.
Not now.
Are you on your phone or on a computer?
I'm trying to make noise and doing what I was doing before. Anything? Testing?
I heard it a little bit now.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
There it
I'm
is.
playing with it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go get a different mic. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Or just
He's-
mute when you're not.
He's
talking.
playing with. Never mind.
There you go, old
so-
man, getting creepy again.
He said it. I didn't.
Yeah. So the during the Second Temple period, the ritual was performed atop the
Yeah,
Mount
you read
of
that already.
Olives, which made it possible. Yeah, Mishnah made it 2:4. Yeah, because it was on a mountain. If you would have gone that distance away, it made sense to do it on the mountain across the valley, so you would be able to see. Verse 5, intestines, Hebrew pirsha, which probably refers to fecal matter. So Intestines, I guess, is just what
That's the NIV's rendition.
NIV,
of
yeah,
this
it was
word,
NIV.
yeah.
Yeah, the waste or whatever, yeah. This probably refers to fecal matter. Levine notes that unlike other sacrifices, Leviticus 4:11, 8:11, 10:27, here the dung is also burned. He further notes that this sensitivity is echoed by Malachi's condemnation of improper sacrifice. I will strew dung on your faces, the very dung of your festal sacrifices. Malachi 2:3.
Yeah, they know how to party.
I didn't know that one.
Never let it be said that God does not have a suitable sense of the dramatic.
Verse 6, cedarwood, hyssop, scarlet wool. These ingredients are also prescribed for the purification of the leper in Leviticus 14, although there they are used differently than in this chapter. Their use in cleansing rituals led Ashley to dub them ritual detergents. He writes that these items are thought to strengthen the cleansing potency of the burnt cow. 9, water of cleansing. So the Hebrew is mei nidah. The word nidah is used to describe impurity, especially menstrual impurity. Leviticus 12:2, 18:19, Ezekiel 18:6. The Septuagint, Targums, the Vulgate, and Peshitta render water of sprinkling, since the root nun dalet hey could mean throw, sprinkle, like the Akkadian nadu and Ugaritic nadi. Nadu.
So when you
NDY.
don't have tide, use hyssop.
Was it like a natural soap? I don't know.
I don't know.
Verse 12. They must purify themselves with the water. Hebrew Bible reads, he shall cleanse himself with it. KJV, JPS. Vulgate, Peshitta, and Targum renders, and he shall sprinkle it, suggesting that he used the waters of impurity. This rendition is supported by Gersonides and Ashley. Rashi, followed by Milgram, Levine, and Licht, read it as referring to the ashes. The Septuagint omits the it. Yeah. Verse 13, Milgram comments, the corpse-contaminated individual, by prolonging his impurity, has defiled the sanctuary from afar, even without entering it. The demand for purification from corpse contamination was so great during Second Temple times that the purificatory waters were made available in 24 districts of the country. Even after the destruction of the temple, these waters were still available in Judea, Galilee, Transjordan, and Etzion Geber in the south. Yeah, I think there was a comment about how, like, or maybe we'll get to that, when the guy takes the ashes and puts them in a clean place, he puts some on the like outside the temple but nearby, and another mound somewhere else to make it easily accessible. Verse 14, in a tent. We haven't done that yet.
No, we have not. With
I
the
don't-
illustrious
Wh-
Lorence.
Where did we read until?
I think we're to 14, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You read 14 as well?
No, I did not read 14.
Okay, so I was right.
Right. Should I continue?
Are there any?
Press on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I shall. But also, one last note. Sorry, because this actually is important. So the use of Eliezer the priest is probably a later addition. The actual tradition probably would have been about just the priest, and we can kind of tell in verses 7 and 8 where it's very vague. It doesn't tell you like a specific person. It says, and the priest shall wash his garments, but then it continues in the next verse, and he who burns her shall wash his garments. So the tradition was probably initially about a priest doing this, just any priest.
Mhm.
But then later, in order to connect it to Moses, you have it through Eliezer. So
Right.
I will.
I
put
have
it
to challenge
into-
that because that happens either that way or in a reverse way continually through scripture, and typically it hints towards the Holy Spirit never testifying of itself.
What?
Or
Yeah,
you
it'll
have,
be unnamed. It's the unnamed servant.
or you just have a different strand of tradition.
Or they just added it, Lawrence. Yeah, I mean,
well, we
later
can't
on.
just say everything's the Holy Spirit, but I'm not getting into it because I need to keep reading.
It makes a lot of sense
Let's
that this
power
is
through.
a later text that is very highly detailed and specific, because it was actually used as a
Mhm.
ritual during the Second Temple period as well as the late First Temple period, and so they would have put it in this part of the story because it makes
Absolutely.
sense.
But then leave
Absolutely.
it out a few sentences later, like they
No.
made a
No,
No, it
mistake
just
in the
stopped.
newer
All
version.
all it had to do was link it with Moses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you just had to add the
you're
name of
trying to fix
Aaron's
the
son.
timeline problem. Okay.
here is a very specific ritual, and then we're going to stick it in and say, this is God commanding Moses to do it the first time. This is the first time it was ever commanded, and at that time he commanded it in this way. So our traditional way of doing it is from that time.
Yeah,
Goes
probably-
all the way back to Aaron's son.
Probably
Yeah.
would have been a polemic against like Ugaritic or Mesopotamian cults of the dead or something.
Also, there's throughout the Deuteronomistic histories, we run into several issues where the high priestship is taken away from some particular person and given to someone closely related to them, and so that there could be some reflection of that in here. I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
There's a lot of
there was a
swapping.
position. So you had the high priest, and there was always a what's the word? Someone who would step in if the high priest were to die, for example.
like a sous chef.
Like a deputy. I don't know what the word is, but I think in Hebrew the word is sagan or something like that. And so they Eliezer, as the son of Aaron, probably would have been expected that he would take over, so he would step in. So it's that's they kind of learn out that the tradition was always done by the
Apprentice.
deputy. Yeah, maybe that's the word.
Deputy. Yeah.
Yeah, deputy high priest.
Either way,
All right.
I will continue.
Number one.
This is the teaching about a person who dies in a tent. Whosoever comes into the tent, and all that is in the tent will be unclean 7 days, and every open vessel that has no tight lid on it will be unclean. And whoever in the open field touches a corpse slain by the sword, or a dead body, or a human bone, or a grave, will be unclean 7 days. And they shall take for the unclean person from the dust of the burning of the offense offering, and fresh water shall be put into it. Shall be put into it in a vessel. And a clean person shall take a hyssop and dip in water and sprinkle it on the tent and on all the vessels and on the people who were there and on him who touched the bone or the corpse or the dead person or the grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle it over the unclean person on the third day, on the seventh day. And on the seventh day, my bad. And he shall cleanse him on the seventh day. And he shall wash his garments and bathe in water, and he will be clean at evening. And a man who becomes unclean and does not cleanse himself, that person will be cut off from the midst of the assembly, for he has defiled the Lord's sanctuary. Riddance water has not been thrown on him. He is unclean, and it shall become a perpetual statute for them. And he who sprinkles the riddance water shall wash his garments, and he who touches the riddance water will be unclean until evening. And whoever the unclean person touches will be unclean, and the person who touches it will be unclean until evening. And that is the end of chapter 19, and more stuff that probably reflects cult of the dead rituals.
Mm.
Or
Which
So
they were
at
very
what point, you touch the living person as you're killing them by the sword, but then once they're dead,
No, it's a sword. It's distance. Stabby, stabby.
What if you
Yeah,
use
you know,
an
the
earthen-
pointy end, the
What if
pointy
you
end
use an-
goes into the other guy.
What if you use an earthenware sword? Does that make you impure? Just to be clear, so if you touch a dead person, or go in or inside a house or a tent that has a dead body inside it, or part of a dead body, a bone or whatever, you become impure until you're cleansed by this ritual.
I wonder if there was any people who were just tempting God, being like, "I'm not touching the dead body. I'm not touching the dead body."
I'm not touching it. Hey, Aaron, get out your bone pen.
The one,
Let's be ritually impure together. I know you haven't.
the one in Leviticus for cleansing the house, if I remember right, is very similar, except for it's kind of crazy. It's got the birds.
Yeah.
Something
yeah,
about
that's
adding
a
the
leper.
birds for the house, right?
Birds.
So that's a
Ritual
leper.
impurity.
It has the same stuff,
You know,
except for the
when
red
I went
heifer.
to when I attended Black Mass, I had to sign a waiver. that I was that I would be an audience for this, and I had to sign a waiver that I would that I offer consent to witness what I was about to witness.
What
Yeah,
is
and
black?
What
my
did
wife
you
and I were
witness?
very scared. It being our first black mass, and they did a pretty good show of it.
No idea what that is.
Satanists. Incidentally, is
Oh,
there any way to
okay.
find local Satanists? Because I really feel like I need some kindred spirits.
Well, you say locally, you're talking about Canada,
Yes, Canada.
Vancouverish Canada.
No. I love you, Aaron, but that is such an American thing to say. I am in a desert, 5 hours drive over 3 mountain ranges from Vancouver, which is a temperate rainforest.
Oh, you mean there's more to British Columbia than Vancouver?
Amazingly.
Deserts in Canada. There's
Yeah,
something.
tell that to the cactus that came in or the rattlesnakes that are actually fucking everywhere.
You
in
have
the
rattlesnakes?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I'm interjecting, but I think we're diverging from the subject.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Lawrence wanted to
Plain
read 3
deserts.
chapters, so
So
Thank
Does
you.
it-
Thank you,
Isaac,
Tomer.
Isaac, or
Oh yeah, okay, let's go.
Wait,
So-
hold on.
yes.
Quickly, we have to talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
Why?
Have
Did
to.
you
We
lose
don't
him
have to.
again?
I'm gonna
Is-
say it.
He is, as always, irrelevant.
Yeah, we
Jesus
just
is
get it.
never the
Jesus'
answer.
First miracle, as far as I can tell, Jesus' first miracle when he turned the water into wine, he used the
Was
vessels
it
of
anybody
this
believed
ash.
this?
It's just
The
important
only
knowledge.
useful thing he ever did.
Whether
Come
you're
on.
an atheist or due to be a Christian soon, hopefully, you should know that.
Yeah,
I
the
can't.
wedding is-
I haven't figured out the significance of it, but it's noteworthy.
Oh,
Yeah.
because he was ripping
Is
off
it the first
Dionysus, who did
miracle?
it first and did it better by changing the rivers into wine.
Indeed,
it's
indeed.
probably
Because I've
more-
seen Penn and Teller pour one jug into another. You know, they pour a jug of water into another jug, and when they pour the other jug out, it's wine.
Mhm.
But Dionysus made the springs of the earth gush forth wine. That's a much better trick. That's something that Jesus and Penn and Teller could not do.
Here's to Dionysus.
Oh,
Long may
speaking
he
of-
bless us with
speaking of
rivers of
alcohol,
wine.
I would first of all, I'd like Isaac and or Tomer to
Yeah.
add into a commentary. I'm gonna go get some sake.
Excellent.
Oh, sake.
You would drink sake.
Okay, you said it. I had some plum sake the other day in Meshu. It was quite
Is
nice.
Lawrence a weeb?
Why? Because he likes sake?
I don't know. I just
He probably
He's a-
is, but
he's
whatever.
the expert scholar. I have to tease him about something.
He's kind of got the Japanese beard thing going on.
Fair enough.
Anyone else
I
But
think
I've never
that?
seen him with a
Okay.
Sake is not beer.
Beard.
All right. So everyone's got their drinks.
Hold on a minute. I have to
gin.
Fine.
evoke the power of my magic ring.
Best birthday gift ever.
Literally the handiest thing my wife ever got me.
I also got a ring. But
Ah!
it's... I also got a ring for my birthday, but it's
Ooh. Oh, is that a cat?
it's a hamster.
That's a hamster. Oh my god, that's so cute.
Yeah. Wait,
Aw.
I'm also a weeb. I got a gotcha.
I have no hatred of weebs. I just feel the need to occasionally tease my fellow nerds according to their kind.
Okay, should we start? Verse 14.
Yes.
In a
I
tent.
thought we were drinking
so-
to something.
Dionysus.
Oh yes,
Wait.
we're drinking to Dionysus, are we? Okay.
Okay, so we're coming to chapter 20, and
Well,
I think
I haven't started Tome's commentary.
Is it
dare
fair?
on
Is it fair to drink a toast to Dionysus when you don't have wine? Because in the kind of trailer park community that I grew up in, we don't drink wine, we drink beer.
And I'm drinking gin. Praise
Yeah.
Dionysus.
Wine is for the upper class.
Oh,
Sir,
yes.
I will have you know.
Nice.
Ooh, look at that white,
White
peach.
peach.
Very nice.
Okay.
I will have you
I
know
can't even
have
drink a-
wines are trash.
I couldn't drink
Is
wine
that-
even if it came in a box.
Is that straight gin, Lilith? What's in that?
No, this is gin and whatever
Something.
needs to be in it.
It's awfully clear.
Vodka.
I would never. Gin is vodka that got its wish.
Excuse me. As a Russian, I resent that remark.
It's funny you said Russian. Speaking of Russian, I read this in pre-industrialistic Russia 401 or something silly in college. I read this novel, and the dude orders a pint of vodka.
I
sounds
heard
about right.
they-
Can we please go back to the subject?
We should, yes.
Or vodka.
Did you guys not get any commentary done? while I was
No,
gone?
they didn't.
No.
They
Oh.
only talked about
We were waiting
their
for
alcohol
you.
drinking and their rings. So
Ugh.
please move on.
Yes, let's.
Okay.
Yes, I need Nenya.
14. In a tent.
This is supposed to be Blasphemers' Bible, and yet Tomer
And
makes me feel
P-Town.
as though I have sinned.
So what are you
the se-
going with? Forgive me, Tomer, I have sinned, or sorry, Daddy, I've been a bad boy.
None.
Septuagint renders house. Ashley writes that the Septuagint translator, who lived long after the wilderness period, held that the law was valid beyond that period. Similarly, Ibn Ezra,
Nachmanides.
Nachmanides?
Yes.
yeah, Nachmanides, Licht and Milgram wrote that it refers to any house. Levine, however, writes that this wording reflects the overall orientation of the priestly writings. Since the laws and ritual were addressed by Moses to the Israelites before their occupation of Canaan, this scene is the migratory experience of Sinai and Transjordan when the Israelites dwelt in tents. Okay, yeah. Verse 15, Levine comments, the contents of any open vessel located inside the enclosure when death occurred, or during the subsequent period of impurity, are rendered impure, and ultimately, so is the vessel itself. The operative principle is that the impurity present within the structure invades all of its interior air or space, and only sealed vessels are protected. The open vessel becomes impure because its unprotected contents have been contaminated, a conclusion proven by the fact that sealed vessels resist the impurity of the atmosphere. Yeah, I think in the Talmud it goes in a lot of detail about some vessels, the inside needs to be contaminated for it to become impure, and others, like metal vessels, the outside is contaminated, it's completely impure. Something
Some
like that.
can be cleansed, some have to be broken, what kind of
Yeah.
seal. Yeah.
And it gets into how many hairs on the red heifer, all that stuff. It's not in the
Yeah, I think
Bible.
that's mentioned in the Talmud as well. It wouldn't be in the same book,
And
Never
a
mind the same
ketone
section.
counts.
probably, but yeah. Verse 16, anyone out in the open. Ashley comments, in open country where one is likely to run into a wider variety of occurrences, care is taken to differentiate types of pollutants. One slain by the sword, chalal charev, i.e. one who has died by violent means, a dead body, met, i.e. one who has died, perhaps of natural causes, a human bone, etzem adam, perhaps a single bone, perhaps an entire skeleton, a grave, kaver, where any of the above may lie buried. There seems to be no differentiation between intentional and accidental contact, although one may assume the latter as more common in the face of the widespread fear of pollution from corpses in the ancient world. Yeah, that makes sense. Since people were so afraid of it back then, they would have been even more careful, so it would have been more likely to have been an accident. Verse 20.
Still having Monty Python flashbacks.
Levine writes that this verse reiterates the admonition in verse 13, except that it uses a different term of reference, kahal, congregation, instead of edah, community, and mikdash, sanctuary, instead of mishkan, a more priestly term. Milgram and Ashley, however, wrote that this is not a repetition of verse 13. Milgram, citing Ibn Ezra and Nachmanides, I
Nachmanides.
keep saying it wrong, Nachmanides, writes that verse 13 belongs to the section that speaks of the purification of a person who is contaminated by a corpse, verses 11 through 13, whereas verse 20 belongs to a new section which itemizes a series of objects and persons contaminated by corpses and parts of corpses, verses 14 through 21. Ashley writes, the reason for the punishment varies in the two verses as well. In 13, the punishment is continued uncleanliness, brought about because the person has not been effused with the waters. In verse 20, the punishment is being cut off because such a one has defiled the tabernacle of Yahweh. One might conclude that the movement between verses 13 and 20 is towards more specificity and more emphasis on the punishment. The reason may be that the ritual for cleansing intervenes in verses 14 to 19, especially 17 to 19, therefore leaving those who hear the ritual described without excuse.
That is a big thing in the Bible, and Christians especially appear to be addicted to the idea of without excuse. You're without excuse, because a lot of the absurd ideas contained, you have to believe that other people really know them too, and it's all their fault. They're pretending not to understand them because you can't actually justify them without assuming.
I don't need an excuse. I got a reason.
Well, the only time I remember it saying
reason
that in the
is
Bible,
the devil's harlot who can only slander and scorn whatever God says and does. Martin Luther.
the only time I remember it saying that in the Bible is, I think, Romans 1, when it talks about how obviously there's a creator, that God made this world. That is obvious.
But it isn't obvious. It's not even apparent. So it's circular reasoning.
So obvious, Arn. But yes, there's no way we're going to get through 2 more chapters unless we just skip to the rock.
Yeah.
That's the next chapter.
That which is obvious must first be apparent.
Who wants to read?
Isaac.
No,
Sorry?
that's it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
it?
I finished commentary on 19. So
You finished Homer's commentary?
Oh, yes. Okay. I'll continue then. Chapter 20. And the Israelites, the whole community, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there, and she was buried there. And the community had no water, and they assembled against Moses and against Aaron. And the people disputed with Moses, and they said, saying, would that we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. And why did you bring the Lord's assembly to this wilderness to die here, we and our beasts? And why did you take us out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place, not a place of seed or fig tree or vine or pomegranate, and no water to drink? And Moses and Aaron with him came away from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces, and the Lord's glory appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the community, you and Aaron your brother, and you shall speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. And you shall bring
Johnson
water. Yes, and you shall bring forth water for them from the rock, and give drink to the community and to its beasts. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he had charged. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly in front of the rock, and he said to them, listen, pray, rebels, shall we bring forth water for you from this rock? And Moses raised his hands, and he struck the rock with his staff twice, and abundant water came out, and the community with its beasts drank. And the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, inasmuch as you did not trust me to sanctify me before the eyes of the Israelites, even so you shall not bring this assembly to the land that I have given to them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites disputed with the Lord, and he was sanctioned through them.
Okay.
I have something to say.
I have a million things to say.
Yeah, well, I'm going first. This is the perfect example of what a fucking evil psychopath God is. Because Moses is supposedly his chosen one. He spoke to him from a burning bush. He took him from the desert. He took him, he went through all the miracles. He led the people. He went up the mountain for 40 days and nights with no food and water because God is magic and shit. and dealt with every little petty insecurity of God and stood between him and murdering the people so many times. What does he do here? He's told by God to speak to the rock, but he speaks to the people and hits the rock with a stick. Now, one of the excuses that Christians will use endlessly to get out of the problem of evil, or try to, is the whole concept of free will. God doesn't want robots that he just tells what to do and they do it exactly. He wants real people who have the capacity to love and think and do for themselves. And the minute that his chosen, who's gone through hell and back to do all of his petty little bidding, goes slightly off script, not even enough that a director would bitch about it, just one line off script, hits instead of speaks to the rock, but still speaks to the people, he is denied the promised land. This is the reason why Moses dies in the desert, because God is that much of a petty fucking bitch.
Okay.
Look, one reason why I believe this text is because it was written by these Jewish dudes, and if it was made up, why would they write something like this? Why would they make up how knucklehead idiots they are, continually questioning God after everything they've been through? Why don't
Why
they
did they
finally just
make
believe
up
in God?
Bhagavad Gita?
Why don't they just
Probably
finally?
to
I
justify.
find it hard.
Here, look at this. Okay, so if we're taking it that way, it might be to justify the exile, because if you read through the prophets, at least they're always making it their own fault, essentially. So like they worshipped God wrong, or they did something wrong, and that's why they are being punished. So this might serve as a kind of justification for that. But even then, it's still like in many ways, it's a doublet of, what is it, Exodus 17, 1-7. Yeah.
Also,
So
it's
this would
sorry,
be
go on.
from a different author that was like that rebrandished the story in order to serve that theological purpose.
All right. Well, I'm
Also,
sorry I brought
Moses.
that
Also,
up.
Moses is getting an old man now. I mean, come on. It's like, you know, when things don't work, when you get rid of, you're like, come
120.
on, just bloody work. Do you know what I mean? How long is he? He's an old man walking around the desert. He's probably tired and worn out, and he's just hitting the rock twice for, you know, he's just an old man.
I can't blame this guy. I mean, look at what he has to deal with. Look at these people.
Yeah, exactly. And then look what God does to him.
But here's the question I have: what was it that God wanted to happen, and why did God want that to happen? And if that had happened, what does that mean? And I think that's because in a way I'm going to agree with you.
Excuse to break his
That's a good
promise,
question.
like he did every other fucking time he made one. Because
There's
God
a more important
always
thing than
fails.
going to the promised land. It's going to the real promised land.
By the way, to answer your initial
Only-
question,
Only in later contexts.
to answer your initial question, Peter, I would say like people didn't see themselves as being identical to their ancestors. They would have seen generations as being different, and the generation of the Exodus would have been seen as quite different as the generation, for example, that came after it, which entered the land. You know, like the first generation, they all die in the desert. You know, they get there just deserts in the desert, and then their children are the ones that enter the land, and they're like a holier generation. And so I don't think they would have seen it as problematic that the story paints the Israelites as being stubborn with God, and you know, and going up and down in their level. But I can see how that might be a problem, but I don't think they would have seen it that same way back then.
All right, we got some commentaries.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and this one is quite
so
long,
first-
especially.
Yeah.
I'll just say this one is quite long, especially on the verse 12, which is the reason for Moses' sin, because it's also a debated topic which
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
put
debated.
a lot of emphasis on it, and with a Christian tradition. So,
Oh, nice. Okay.
yes.
So verse 1 in the first month. So this is a bit of context. The day and the year are not given. Targum Peshitta, no, Targum Pseudo Jonathan on the 10th says on the 10th day. Milgram notes that the word for month, Kadesh, could also mean new moon, 28:14, and the dating is comparable with that of Exodus 19:1 on the third new moon, Kadesh. Josephus in Antiquities, 478, Ibn Ezra and Rashban wrote that this was the 40th year. Milgram and Ashley support this since the people were soon to be allowed to move towards Canaan again, verse 14, which would only happen at the close of the wilderness wanderings. So we've skipped a lot of time. We've skipped the entire 40-year encampment or wandering, whatever you want to call it. And now that's at the end, all the people are dead. It's the next generation. Milgram notes that Deuteronomy has a different tradition. Israel stayed at Kadesh for many days. Deuteronomy 1:46, and spent 38 years in the desert. Deuteronomy 2:14. According to this tradition, the date in the current verse refers to the first day of the third year. So there's two different opinions. One is this is at the end of the 40 years in the desert, and the others is it's before the 38 years in the wilderness, like the actual wandering where they just don't do anything. And they stayed in Kadesh. Levine comments, there is subtlety in verse 1, which is a pivotal statement in the priestly historiography of Numbers. The words Vayeshev Ha'am B'Kadesh probably derive from JE, as is suggested by use of the term Ha'am, the people, to designate the Israelites. Originally, these words may have had circumstantial force and may have come at the beginning of Numbers 20:14. While the people were residing at Kadesh, Moses dispatched messages from Kadesh to the king of Edom. By positioning these words in verse 1, however, the priestly writers associated them with the Israelite arrival at Kadesh, not with a prior circumstance. As a result, Numbers 21, as we have it, explicitly records Israelites' arrival in the wilderness of Sin, but is less explicit regarding when precisely they had begun their residence at Kadesh. There Miriam died. Rashi, based on Moed Katan 28a, which is in the Mishnah, I think, or the
I think it's a tractate. It's a different tractate.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Gemara on it.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. It says 28a, which is
Yeah,
Talmud, but
I
yeah,
think it's the
whatever.
Mishnah, but I should check this.
Yeah, writes that Miriam died by divine kiss, like Aaron and Moses, indicated by the phrase "by the mouth of the Lord," Al-Pi Yehovah, for Aaron in 33:38. But this phrase is not said of Miriam because this would not be a respectful way of speaking about the Most High God.
According to Ashley.
So it
Because
wouldn't be
the Lord, whom the Lord loves, he also murders.
Yeah, I think it's saying that it would be disrespectful for God to kiss a woman, but it's
Right. I
it's
forgot.
fine
We're
for him.
filthy sinners, but not really
But it's-
people,
yeah.
but also accoutrement.
Yeah, but it's
And-
fine to use the expression "by the mouth of the Lord" for Aaron and "divine kiss" or whatever word is used for Moses.
I keep thinking I'm people. I have to stop that.
Well, I mean,
Terrible
Rashi is saying that even though it doesn't say it in the text, that she still received the same painless death or whatever it means, straight to heaven, blah blah blah. But he's just giving an excuse why it's not in the text, because it would be unseemly to use that phraseology with God, who is a man, obviously, and Miriam.
And they forgot he's a big old homo. So
verse 2, there was no water of the community. Targums tutor Jonathan gives a reason for this. And as on account of innocence of Miriam, a well had been given. So when she died, the well was hidden, and the congregation had no water. So the rabbis explain this connection. She dies, and then they say they have no water. Is that it was for the benefit? It was
a miracle
kavod,
that delineated the purity and virtue of Miriam. And when she was dead, that was taken from the community.
Yeah, the virtue. Yeah, for the virtue of Miriam was the water, and I think they also say like the clouds of glory were the virtue of Aaron, for example.
Question
yeah.
for anyone. Is it ever recorded that Miriam married or had children?
I think in the story with the Cushite wife of Moses, it's implied, but maybe not in the text. I think definitely the
Oh, there is.
Oh yeah, there's also like a whole
There-
tradition of her being the mother of someone.
Yeah. Okay. So according to Chazal in Talmud Sota 11b, I believe, she's referred to the wife of Caleb ben Yefuneh, and
Yeah.
there is a Dead Sea Scroll that says that Miriam married to Uziel, son of Kehath, when she was 30.
Okay.
Do you know
All
which
right.
Dead Sea Scroll, out of curiosity?
I'll check. I'll try to find it real quick.
That's
It's
interesting.
It's
sorry.
the Jewish idea of feminine virtue is often within marriage and the bearing of children and the running of a household, whereas the Christian idea is that's a concession, but you should really be chaste and pure and virginal forever, because that's not creepy at all. So it's
Yeah, I don't mean virtue as in like she was like
yeah, no,
virginal.
not just in being
It
a
was
virgin,
in
but
her merit, because I think
yeah,
it's more
her
she was a
merit,
sister.
her spiritual merit.
She was a sister of Moses, and also like in the beginning of Exodus, we have the story where Miriam
She prophesies.
and like gets her parents to come back together, and there's also the
Mhm.
idea of her, walking along the river and then being there when Pharaoh's daughter finds him, and and the Pharaoh's daughter is able to ask her, and she's able to go fetch her mother to be the nurse.
Oh yeah, no, she's a
yeah.
remarkable character in and of herself, but or well, would be if she was allowed to be a person. But it's yeah, it's one of those things where I've seen too many seeds of creepy shit be turned into purity culture, and I'm just a little bit trigger happy with the warnings on
Yeah, I
that
just couldn't
one.
remember what the word was. It's in honor of her. I don't know. It's not necessarily
Mhm.
because of her.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, I see the word innocence. but
Yeah,
I
and
think
then they get to blame the
Yeah.
people for complaining about a lack of water because it's not like humans need water to survive.
Right.
Lawrence, the
Brady.
scroll, just real quick, the scroll is 4Q545, Visions of Amram.
Okay, thanks.
And Amram is the father of them,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
these three
Moses.
characters, by the way.
Yes.
Verse 5, figs, grapevines, pomegranates. These are the items that the scouts brought back from Canaan in 1323. Verse 6. And, oh, wait. Verse 6. Did we read that?
I
Yeah,
read
yeah.
all the way to or through verse 13.
Oh, 13. Okay, yeah. So 6, and fell face down. While Ibn Ezra writes that this was done in prayer, Milgram writes that this was done out of fear, since prayer does not require prostration. He further writes that Moses' silence here is meant to underscore the gravity of his sin in his subsequent outburst. Verse 10b. In contrast to his past angry rebuttals to the people's complaints. Ashley writes that this is a common trope in the complaint narrative, and only 1622 reports any speech by the one who has fallen on his face before Yahweh. Nevertheless, Vulgate adds that they said, O Lord God, hear the cry of this people, and open to them thy treasure, a fountain of living water, that being satisfied, they may cease to murmur. That's
I've
interesting.
always found it interesting how the relationship between God and his people is so often depicted as a marriage. And if you go onto any site wherein they provide such support for troubled marriages and look into what the symptoms are of an abusive relationship and an abusive spouse, you will find that God meets every fucking criteria in there to the nth degree, both with the Jews, who, as Colonel Ingersoll said, never had any fucking luck until their awful God abandoned them, and then with Christians subsequently. It's just, it's textbook. If you want to be an abusive husband, God has written you the perfect guidelines. Just follow. It's so easy.
If you're a Christian and you're a husband, first of all, I just want to say, since you talked about purity, if you want a long-lasting relationship, and if you're young watching this, don't have sex before marriage. Two people who don't have sex before marriage get married together, last way longer.
And then
Period.
realize
As a
they're
survivor,
pregnant and
It's a
end up
fact.
divorced within
as
2
a
years.
survivor of
False.
impurity culture, I
data's
can
on my side here.
attest from personal experience, it's bullshit.
I've
Yep.
been with
It's
my
never,
wife
ever.
since she was 15 and I was 16, and we're still together now. And we're grandparents, and we didn't get
Good for you.
married.
Grandparents, how old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
Nearly 40.
You're a fucking baby. Yeah, no, it's
I'm a
actually, I find
granddad
that
baby
funny.
then.
Well, it sounds like did either of you sleep with someone else before each other?
Sorry, what?
Did you sleep
Did
with
you
any
fuck
other woman?
anybody else before you
would
fucked?
what would it matter if we love each other?
Because his
When it
point
comes to
is
that's what
that
marriage is.
two people who don't have sex until marriage last longer in marriage. That's his
And
point.
every woman who has ever survived purity culture and come out the other side with a voice will attest, and please listen to all of their stories. Do not wait till marriage, ever. It is a terrible idea, and the people who idolize that are toxic and dangerous, and you are way more likely to end up with an abusive piece of shit. You may get lucky. You may find a decent one. It is possible. So is winning the goddamn lottery. Don't put your savings into it.
Or you can
Reminder,
you could do
it's
what
not-
I do, because I've never been married. I'm never going to be married. So any sex I have is not premarital sex. I can do whatever I want. I beat the system.
You ruined it. You ruined it, Peter.
I beat the
I
system.
was gonna say the joke. It's not premarital sex if you never get married.
Yes, it is.
There you go. Perfect.
This is what it means to be a Christian husband. You're supposed to be like Christ, which means you're supposed to be willing to give your
You're
life.
supposed
So
to
you-
hang around with
What?
nothing but
All right,
guys.
You're
all right,
supposed-
cut it,
Which
cut
means-
it.
You're supposed to never get
Cut it,
married,
guys.
P-Town.
We're
Be like
way off
Christ.
Yeah,
track.
you're only supposed to
Way
hang
off
out with guys.
We're way off
You know
track,
what?
guys.
I will be like Christ to you, P-Town. I will be like Christ, and I will forgive you every affront you have ever made against me, as I perceive them, not as you perceive them. If you surrender your will and your integrity and your mind and your soul and serve me forever.
Professional findom right here. Let's continue with the text.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments to read.
Yes.
Let me just get a couple. Someone claiming to be Matt Dillahunty, though I have my doubts, says, "I have a
It's-
Jesus question.
it's
Once
Dillahunty.
resurrected and therefore Dillahunty. There you go.
Yeah.
Once resurrected and therefore immortal, why ascend to unto heaven, and not hang out here and be an inspiration and proof to all? Because that would make sense, and that would be something that you would actually do if you were a loving God."
We can let P-Town answer this, but then we should just cut it there and then go to the next
Yeah.
question.
I actually zoned out again. I know. I'm gonna.
Of
hear it.
course
Okay,
you did.
next.
You're really good at your timing on
I
these
was
sorts of things.
sorry. I didn't. Yeah, I thought it wasn't towards me, so I.
It was a Jesus question.
Once
right.
resurrected and therefore immortal, why ascend to heaven and not hang out here and be an inspiration and proof to all?
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out.
Okay, there you go.
But we have something better though. See, if you were able to, if Jesus came in and smacked you on the butt, Lawrence, you would just think that you have some sort of mental disorder. We have something better. We have the word
P-Town,
of
you
God.
don't even believe that yourself.
that
Jesus is
Lawrence
definitely
would
a
think.
bottom. He would never.
No, you don't believe what you're saying right now.
I do.
It's a game. Every time I speak to you, I am leaning more toward Lawrence's opinion. There's no way that anybody could possibly believe the things that you pretend to believe that you clearly don't really believe.
What we just went through with Exodus is this, and then here too in Numbers, is an entire group of people in the shape of a cross marching in the wilderness, being
It is
fed
irrelevant
manna
to
from
this
heaven.
chapter.
A rock
Yeah, there's
that
another.
was
You're very good at
smitten and
finding
water
red
pours out.
herring.
The point
You're
is-
very
is-
good at ducking and dodging.
Yes,
That
to
you're
agree
good
with
at.
I'll agree with you. I was an atheist for a long time. The man of
No, you
me
weren't.
is still here, And yes,
No, you
it's
weren't.
challenging,
So-
but there is more evidence to believe in Jesus. That's my
Except that
position.
there's
That's
not
honestly-
one single fact you
There
can
was-
list.
there was
Boys,
one.
So there's- I've listed,
simmer down.
I've
Simmer down,
listed
boys.
I've listed all of my facts and evidence. You've addressed none of them and presented none of your own. So when you say more, you mean there's nothing.
You can always
Donut,
have more
babe.
than
You
zero.
got zip.
You can
So-
always have more than zero. So P-Town, feel free to consume a list.
Next.
Shut up. Trevor and Wright says, what are your thoughts on certain religious texts that are used to form a theological narrative that puts emphasis on the divine nature of life and death rooted in purity culture?
Kill it with fire. Kill it with fucking fire. Anything to do with purity culture, kill it with fire. It will cost more in blood without.
I had to just say, Trevor Wright always has like these general questions, which the answer seems longer than the question.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. We'll have to get back to you, I guess.
Yep.
All right. You got some more commentary?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
No. Where am I up to?
You were at 8, I think.
Yep.
Verse 8.
Yes. Verse 8, the staff. Milgram, Levine, and Licht wrote that this was Moses' rod, which he used to perform the signs in Egypt and the miracles in the wilderness. Milgram adds that more relatively, this rod was used in a previous instance of drawing water from a rock in Exodus 17:1-7. Ashley, however, writes that it is likely Aaron's rod, since according to verse 9, this staff was from the presence of Yahweh, which is probably a direct reference to the fact that Aaron's rod had been placed before Yahweh and had been taken from Yahweh's presence and replaced before the testimony in the tent of meeting. Go back to 17:7-9-10. He notes that the Septuagint and Vulgate omit the word his in verse 11 and struck the rock twice with his rod to make it clear that this was Aaron's rod. Okay.
Wait, are we arguing whether or not this is the magic rod that grew its own nuts?
Yes.
You love me.
That was very good. Verse 12, the nature of Moses' sin.
Look at that face.
Yes.
Look at that face.
Oh, you cute.
Verse 12, the nature of Moses' sin has been debated among commentators through antiquity. Milgram gives 11 explanations for Moses' crime. While it seems obvious that Moses' crime was hitting the stone rather than speaking to it, Rashi, Rashbam, Luzzatto, Milgram refutes this by citing Nachmanides. When Moses addressed Israel, listen, you rebels. 1, yeah, is that 1 for?
Yeah, that's first. Yeah, that's like he has 3 arguments against it. So.
Oh, okay. So 1, when Moses addressed Israel, listen, you rebels, he was also speaking to the rock and therefore fulfilling God's command. In number 2, how are we to understand that Moses failed to sanctify God's name? Numbers 20:12, 27:14, Deuteronomy 32:51, in striking the rock, when it is as much a miracle to draw forth water by striking as by speaking. And 3, why would Moses be told at the beginning of this text to take the rod in verse 7, if not for the purpose of using it? Indeed, wherever the rod is employed, except for Exodus 17:9, smiting is either specifically mentioned or implied. Exodus 7:17.
Sometimes I just want to lose my temper like Moses. You rebels.
Well, no, you're quite right. The smiting of the water to call the blood, the smiting of the Red Sea or Reed Sea to part it, there's always smiting. The smiting of the dust to cause the fleas and gnats and so forth. Smiting is very much in vogue with the rod.
That's what you use your rod for. Levine suggested that Moses' crime came. Levine suggested that Moses' crime came from him striking the rock twice. He notes that in 2 Kings 2:13-15, Elisha struck the water twice in his attempt to replicate Elijah's miracle, since nothing happened the first time. He further adds that Moses showed impatience or lack of faith, or perhaps it was normal in magical activity to repeat specific actions. Milgram rejects the twice explanations, since it has no corroborative evidence. As for Moses' blazing temper, he cites so many of these words.
Nachmanides' refutation.
Nachmanides' refutation. 1. God's condemnation. You did not trust me. You disobeyed my command. In 20:12 and 24 cannot refer to anger. 2. Aaron was not guilty of anger. Why was he also punished? 3. Most important of all, our text is not an isolated case of Moses' petulance. For example, Moses was wroth with his army officers, 31:14, without provocation. Milgram writes that most scholars think that the true sin of Moses was omitted or deliberately obscured to avoid damaging his reputation. He writes, however, that such argument from silence is rarely satisfactory, and to claim that his sin was removed from the narrative would have required a severe mutilation of the text for such a purpose. He notes that biblical editors did not consider biblical heroes as infallible and did not hesitate to tarnish them. Noah, Judah, Levi, David. Milgram's preferred explanation, given by Nachmanides and Bechorshar, is that Moses and Aaron sinned by saying, "Must we bring you water?" when they should have said, "Must he bring you water?" By saying "we," the miracle is attributed to Moses and Aaron, not God. Thus, Moses' behavior could be interpreted as a denial of God's essence. He writes,
Probably.
in the sight of the assembled throngs of Israel, Moses and Aaron missed the opportunity to sanctify God before the eyes of the children of Israel. Numbers 20:12, 27:14, and Deuteronomy 32:51. Instead, they showed no trust, Numbers 20:12a, acting treacherously, Deuteronomy 32:51, rebelling against God, Numbers 20:24, 27:14, rendered by Nachmanides as "you changed my words," setting themselves up in his place, arrogating to themselves the divine power to draw forth the water miraculously from the rock. Now, I think this is a Christian interpretation.
Yes.
Ashley notes that Jacques de Vaux thinks that striking the rock was sacrilege because it represented God. It is similar to Paul's interpretation that the rock was Jesus, 1 Corinthians 10:4, with Augustine tractate on John 26:12-2, writing that the double striking prefigures the two pieces of wood on the cross.
Oh, for God's
That's
sake.
hilarious.
So I got a crazy. You guys want to
Wow,
hear a crazy
the
Christian
stretch.
crazy Christian stretch here for you?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Remember when I said, Lawrence, you took an interest on this? We kind of have to ask the question, why was God that mad? Of course, he lost his temper, but they are pretty annoying. So you would think the punishment shouldn't be that much, but why did God prefer for him just to speak to the rock? And possibly, maybe it's because the first time it was because the rock was smitten. Second, God just wanted it to be spoken to, so not smitten. So maybe it's the first and second coming of Christ. That was God's intention.
Right, because
All right, you want to
all
know
the
crazy
versions I've heard-
possibilities?
I'm not sure
Crazy
how you actually got there. Like for other points you've made,
Well, you got the first
That-
part right. It's,
I was telling
it's
you-
crazy, but it's not a possibility.
It takes a second to draw the connections. It's hard to do in
Yeah,
10
you
seconds.
need the possibility part.
I'm-
Right
I'm-
now, you
I have
just
a
got the crazy.
clarifying question. What part of any version of the presumed second coming of Christ is less smitey than the first version?
The part where this time he's not going to be smitten.
He just smites everybody else. Right, of course. He was smitten the first time. The second time, he just smites us all in his vengeance.
You guys
Although I
like
do
to
have-
make fun of it. He was throwing you a bone here. It was a little crazy.
I mean, that was less of a
but
stretch,
the
more of a
idea of
spaghettification.
but the idea of, I think that we should look at what was God's intention. What did Moses do to
God was a petty bitch.
interact? Hit his ultimate, like what he actually wanted to achieve from the whole ordeal. But anyway, Lawrence is thinking hard about this. Look at
so
that.
is it that the
This got you
punishment
thinking.
is it that the punishment will be greater the second time around? Is that the link you're trying to make?
No.
Were you
Because-
saying that he
because
was
this
supposed
time
to
they're-
speak?
The Bible's littered with imagery, right? Little
Sure.
tiny connections, little tiny images, kind of like looking through one of those paintings or one of those pictures where you have to like cross your eyes the right way and be at a certain amount of distance, and then boom, you can see it. This is the Christian perspective of the Bible, and this is one of those little, you know, in this way, Christ is considered the rock. We know that throughout Scripture. So
am I correct in assuming that
the first time it gave water, he
terms
didn't
of
hit it. Second time, he wasn't supposed to hit it.
Time he wasn't supposed to hit it. So
Yeah.
Jesus will not, specifically Jesus, just Jesus, will not be smited upon his second coming. Everyone else might be smited, but not Jesus. Jesus was smited on the first coming. He will not be smitten on the second coming. Is that correct? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Or he's not
I
supposed
know you're adding the whole he's going to smite everyone part, but yeah.
No,
That's my
I'm
point.
saying
Isn't
Anyway,
Jesus
it
supposed
was
to
just
crush all
conjecture,
the?
but I only
Is-
said it because Lorence was interested in my
Isn't
mode of
Jesus
thought that I
supposed to
brought up.
crush all the unbelievers in a bloody wine press?
yeah, but that
brings
doesn't
the-
matter because Jesus
You still have
won't
time,
get
Aaron.
any
We're
smiting.
working on you. Don't worry.
I'm sorry. I'm just
Okay.
not going to suffer your disease.
I asked for the link and I got it. So let's move
Yeah.
on.
Excellent.
Let's move on.
Links
All
are
right,
good.
One more
verse
comment.
13.
James
Oh,
Hogue
yeah.
says P-Town, and I wish they wouldn't ask P-Town questions. Do you really have that much faith in humanity that they wouldn't kill Jesus the second time around too?
I think they'll probably try to.
I think we know who would be against that,
But I
communist
wouldn't.
bastard.
I wouldn't bet that you're going to win.
In fairness, the visions of Jesus for the second coming are all very, I am the omnipotent warrior, exactly like they swore I was going to be the first time I was the Messiah.
The problem I have with that is we got a half a dozen people right now who claim to be in the reincarnation of Jesus. Right now, there's a half a dozen people in different parts of the world who claim to be Jesus.
Well, even Jesus said that was going to be the case.
Yeah, well, of course he did, didn't he? So we're not killing those people. There's no reason to kill those people. And there's no reason that those people would be Jesus. There's no reason Jesus would be Jesus. Christianity doesn't make any fucking sense at the onset. So why would it be an issue? Why would we even talk about what would we do if Jesus came back? Jesus couldn't, based on what we've read so far, Jesus still wouldn't be able to answer the simple questions he couldn't answer before.
Okay, there's something you don't understand
When
about
Jesus
Christian
comes, I don't
mythology.
think you'll be asking many questions, Aaron.
Just a
You're gonna be on
second,
your
P-Town,
knees.
there's something that
Your magic imaginary friend ain't coming.
Okay, guys.
He's
Yeah.
2,000
Aaron.
years
Yeah.
late.
Aaron,
There's another comment.
All right, Eric Wander says, this chapter says that Aaron died in Mount Hor, but in Deuteronomy 10:6 it says that he died at Mosera. Is Mount Hor in Mosera? Any commentary about this contradiction? And
maybe more is
much
in
love,
Mosera.
Gomer.
Thank you. Maybe when we'll get to Deuteronomy 10:6, I'll look at it. But
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
yeah, I should look it up. Maybe in the Discord.
Right, yeah.
Until then, I don't want to hear any more about mounting whores.
All right. Isaac, do we have more commentary?
Yes.
Which verse did we
13,
get
I think.
Yeah, I went through 13.
Okay, you did 13 as well?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll do 13. Levine comments, in a sense, this verse contradicts the preceding, further suggesting that verse 12 would interpolate. Verse 12 states that Moses and Aaron had failed to sanctify God in the sight of the people, whereas verse 13 records that subsequent to the conflict, God was sanctified by virtue of his demonstrated power, here employed to produce water. Gray suggests that repeated use of the word Kadesh,
Kadesh, yes.
Kadesh.
Oh, okay, to be holy, is a play on the toponym
Kadesh.
The toponym. Oh, it's in the wrong order.
It's a play on
Okay.
words.
Yeah, sorry.
Is a play on the toponym Kadesh.
Hifil Hikdish.
And then the hifil of the same root, hikdish, to proclaim holy, requires a leader to show the people's God's acts or to recount them to the people, Isaiah 29:23.
Yeah, and I think he finished there.
All right,
Okay, didn't
I
read
will
it.
continue then. Verse 14. And Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus said your brother Israel, you know all the hardship that has found us. Our fathers went down to Egypt, and we dwelled in Egypt for many years, and the Egyptians did evil to us and to our fathers. And we cried out to the Lord, and he heard our voice and sent a messenger and brought us out of Egypt. And look, we are in Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Let us pray, pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard, and we will not drink well water. On the king's road we will go. We will not swerve to the right or the left until we pass through your territory. And Edom said to him, you shall not pass through me, lest with the sword I come out to meet you. And the Israelites said to him, on the highway we will go up, and should we drink your water, I and my livestock I will pay its price. Only it is nothing. On foot let me pass through. And he said, you shall not pass. And Edom came out to meet him with heavy troops and a strong hand. And Edom refused to let Israel pass through his territory. And Israel swung away from him. And they
You shall not.
damn straight. And they journeyed on from Kadesh, and the Israelites, all the community, came to Hor the mountain. And the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron at Hor the mountain, on the border of the land of Edom, saying, let Aaron be gathered to his kin, for he shall not come into the land that I have given to the Israelites, because you both have rebelled against my word at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up Hor the mountain, and strip Aaron of his garments, and clothe with them Eleazar his son. And Aaron will be gathered up, and he will die there. And Moses did as the Lord had charged. And they went up to Hor the mountain before the eyes of all the community. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments, and clothed with them Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on the mountaintop. And Moses came down, and Eleazar with him, from the mountain. And all the community saw that Aaron had expired. And all the house of Israel keened for Aaron 30 days. That's the end of chapter 20.
I really love your translation is so literal. It's like word for word. They try and keep the word order of the Hebrew. It's very interesting.
Yes.
What's
Robert
that
Alter.
called?
That's altars.
Yeah, he did a good
Yeah.
job, I think, of the translation.
I mean, it doesn't flow as nicely, I guess,
Sure.
because it's not as natural English. But it's amazing to see like how closely it follows the Hebrew word for word.
I appreciate
Yeah.
the respect of the Hebrew, although it does kind of sound like they took Aaron up on a mountain, stripped him naked, stabbed him, and then put his clothes on his eldest kid and came down and were like, hey, guys, just what God said.
We got a new priest.
Hey!
Yeah, so I grew up with
Have we-
the name.
Have we finished the commentary on 20?
No,
Unfortunately, no.
No.
We have just a few more verses that we just did. Yeah, so we went from 14 till the end. Okay. I'm sure this will come up anyway, so I'm not going to say it. Okay, so 14, your brother Israel. Ashley notes that since Edom is equated with Esau, Genesis 32:4, 36:1-9, Israel, i.e. Jacob, calls itself the brother of Edom. Deuteronomy 2:4, 23:7, and Amos 1:11. 16, an angel or messenger. Hebrew malach. Licht notes that a prophet could also be called an angel or messenger of the Lord. Isaiah 42:19 and Haggai,
Haggai.
1:13. Yeah, and so the term here could refer to Moses. Rashi and Gersonides. He
Gersonides.
writes Gersonides.
Yeah.
He
Sorry.
writes, however, that it probably refers to a divine angel that led the Israelites out of Egypt, a tradition that is found in Exodus 23:20 through 23, 33:2-4, according to Ibn Ezra. A town on the edge of your territory. Milgram notes that Kadesh is not a town, nor is it on Edom's border. Nachmanides suggests that this was a different Kadesh. I think does Milgram note that Kadesh Barnea, whatever
Yeah.
is
No, that's Kadesh.
Yeah, but I'm saying when he says it's not a town, is he talking about Kadesh Barnea?
He's talking about a place that would have been called just Kadesh.
Yes, just
Okay.
Kadesh.
Okay. I thought he was saying those were the ones I got mixed up. Okay. Nachmanides suggested this was a different Kadesh. Ashley, however, writes that this assumes the existence of a site about which we know nothing elsewhere. He writes that the diplomatic message is not attempting scientific precision, and when Kadesh is called a city on the outskirts of your border, it means that the Israelites are at a place near to Edom, as opposed to far away from it. Levine suggested that the author of Numbers 20, 14 through 21 wrote at a time in which Edomite territory ran along the southern border of Judah, which would bring it up to where the known place called Kadesh was. Ashley, however, writes that the claim that the text is a late fabrication results from judgments that are more negative than the text warrants, and that there's nothing in the claims of the text that would force one to conclude that it must be fiction. I think the traditional location of the kingdom of Edom would have been like southeast, so like southern Jordan, modern day Jordan.
There's something I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, and Lawrence, Isaac, Tomer, please tell me if I'm remembering this correctly. But I've noticed that throughout the course of various inserted or not inserted texts, there's been a lot of back and forth about Edom being both good and bad in extremity. And I'm trying to remember if they were the ones that were allied with King Saul in the later Deuteronomistic histories, because they rescued the body of King Saul, and I
Wait, wasn't it the Amalekites?
No, it was not the Amalekites. The kid who came to David and said, "I killed Saul, give me a reward." He was an Amalekite.
Okay,
but
that was at the beginning of Second Kings.
Yeah. But the actual the clan who was like foreign but not super foreign, I think it was the Edomites, and I'm not entirely certain. I have so much of the Bible memorized, it gets confusing at times.
Nothing further is recorded of the Edomites in the Tanakh until their defeat by King Saul of Israel.
There you go.
So,
okay, yeah, because they were allies, but also slightly subservient, but also still there was some genuine loyalty there. They rescued the body of Saul and his sons from the wall that they were nailed to, the headless body of Saul and his sons. Whichever of his sons was killed in the final battle that he was killed in after they spoke to the Witch of Endor.
So one real quick thing. So I'll be right back. I surely hope that Isaac gets through the commentary.
Okay.
But if I am not back in time, I am tagging in Matt to do the reading of chapter 21.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt is the newbie. We must duly make him.
Yeah. So Edom would have actually been straddling the border between what is now southern Israel, the Negev area, and modern day Jordan. So kind of like the valley between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba. So actually that's relevant to the next verse, verse 17, the King's Highway. Ashley comments, the King's Highway, Derech HaMelech, is an ancient roadway running north to south from Damascus to the Gulf of Aqaba through Bashan, Gilead, Ammon, Moab, and Edom. It was used by traders and was guarded by a line of fortresses from as early as the early Bronze Age 4 through the Middle Bronze 1, circa 2200 to 1800 BCE, an Iron 1 period, circa 1200 to 1000 BCE. It may be along this route that Kedorlaomer forces attacked Abraham in Genesis 14. One should not think of a paved highway built at the expense of the state, but a well-marked track along which not only people on foot, but also people with animals and in wagons and chariots, i.e. king's armies, could pass. I think there's also some traditional commentary that says that it just means we will go the way that the king, whatever the way the king tells us to go. We'll stick to it. Verse 18, you shall not pass through here. Chizkuni writes that the king was afraid that the Israelites would use the opportunity to invade and conquer his kingdom. Licht supports this interpretation, noting that since Edom is located in the desert, it is only natural that the Edomites are suspicious of wanderers. Sforno writes that the Edomites were bloodthirsty people and did not need more than the slightest pretext to start a war. Milgram writes that Edom takes vengeance on Israel for what Jacob did to Esau. 19, the main road. Hebrew Bamidbar. Levine renders highway and writes that Mesilah indicates a flattened or at least graded road from which rocks had been removed. Verse 22, Mount Hor. The exact location of this mountain is disputed. The traditional identification, Josephus in Antiquities 447, Eusebius Onomasticon 176-67, is Jebel Nebi Harun, Mount of the Prophet Aaron, near Petra. This, however, is rejected by modern scholars since it is in the heart of Edom, far from its borders. Ashley writes that most likely it refers to Jebel Madura, about 15 miles, 24 kilometers northeast of Kadesh, just outside the northwest boundary of Edom. He writes, however, that certainty is not possible and adds, an alternative is that although Hor has been taken as a proper name, it is really only an archaic form of Har, which means mountain. The name Hor is applied to a mountain in Lebanon in 34:7. Here the Septuagint translates to Oros, the mountain of the mountain, or the summit of the mountain. Some support for this sense may be found in the unique word order Hor, the mountain. This view is at least as old as Jerome, who wrote, it is possible to read Aaron the priest ascended onto the summit of the mountain. Yeah, the Hebrew is Hor HaHor, and the word Hor is also the same word for mountain. So
Well, it's actually
Hor, the mountain. It's very
Did
similar.
I
the-
hear
the-
you
the
correctly?
commands-
You said it's hard to har.
No. It's
Har,
Ho
yeah.
Hahar. It's
Ho
I think-
HaHar. That's it. That's right. Although it's
Hor
sometimes called Ho
HaHar.
HaHar. Oh, is it? But it's with a comma. That's why I'm saying it.
that's
like
a kamatz katan, yes.
That's
I
why I'm
know
saying
it's-
it like that. Yeah, so
Language
it's,
changes over time, and it's
so-
entirely
yeah.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so in modern Hebrew you would say Ho HaHar, but in the sort of Ashkenazi you would say like Hor HaHor.
But in
So it
Disney villain, we
sounds-
say ha ha ha.
Yeah, so
Are you
it's
sure you
so
don't
it's
want to
possibly
say
just
Hor
means.
HaHor?
So there is a tradition that it's a mountain with like a little mountain on top of it, and that mountain on top of it has a cave in it, and that's where he died.
So he's wearing the mountain is wearing another mountain as a hat.
Yeah, it's like a big apple with a small apple on top of it. Is what Rashi calls it.
Why not? Just
I'm sure
fucking
there are.
why
I'm sure there
not?
are some natural mountains that have like a shallow gradient and then a sharp gradient.
Did,
so it looks
did
like
they call it New York, New York?
No, they called it uncircumcised.
the big apple with the small apple on top? Yeah.
So with all
Verse
this reading,
24, Aaron,
Isaac, with all this reading, I get the
Yeah.
idea that Jesus was born in the wrong town, because we have several Jesuses walking around on the planet. None of the media is paying them any attention. But you can't turn on the TV.
They were born in Mexico.
Yeah, you can't turn on the TV, your computer, or open a newspaper, or someone is mentioning one of the Kardashians. So, I don't know.
I heard someone thought the Kardashians were like a people from Star Trek. Race. Anyway,
They are.
I tell you truthfully, I have seen not one frame of footage for whatever it is that the Kardashians are famous for. I was told that they're just famous for being famous.
Has to be an age thing, Arn.
Yeah,
I haven't
have-
either.
Kim Kardashian is famous for dad ass.
Didn't they get famous
Red-
from what's his name's trial?
Yeah, from OJ's
Yeah,
trial.
yeah,
That's
I
I think we're
Okay.
diverging.
And then they just took off with it.
I
Oh,
think
that's
we're
crazy.
diverging.
Yeah. So also, Peter, you said multiple
Need a bit of
Jesuses. I
ass.
think the word is
Very dumb.
Jesus because the word Jesus is Greek.
okay. I stand corrected.
Maybe. Verse 20. I don't know. Verse
GTI.
24. Jesus. Yeah. Verse 24. Aaron will be gathered to his people. This idiom is only found in the Pentateuch.
It would
in
be
connection with the
it would be
deaths.
Yesioi, by the way, because that's how you pluralize a masculine form in Greek. But either way, yeah.
Yes,
It is
yoy.
great, right?
Got to
But I
commit
guess
that to
they would
memory.
come into English as
Yes,
Jizoi.
Yeah, the next time we read Josephus, we talk about all the what is it, 19/20 yes,
You
yoy.
stole the words right out of my mouth.
Where are we?
24. This idiom is only found in the Pentateuch in connection with the deaths of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses. Ashley comments, Wenham states that the idiom relates to the reunion of the family in Sheol, although it may be true that the idiom does in some way relate the union of a dead person with his ancestors. We must be careful not to assume that we know what the Hebrew view of life after death was at this period in Israel's history. Indeed, it is difficult to show that the Hebrews had one cogent view of life after death. Wenham uses 2 Samuel 12:23 in support of his contention about life after death. The passage in 2 Samuel is as likely to be a statement about the immutability of death as it is a statement about life after death. Milgram's view is that being gathered is the act between dying and being buried. He also connects it with a reunion with one's family in Sheol. The root of the idiom may refer to gathering the remains of the dead into a family pit, cave, or crypt, that in due course became more generally applied to describe the end of human life. Both of you rebelled against my command. If both sinned, why didn't they die together? Milgram gives 5 of Abravanel's Abravanel's answer for the question. 1. The death of the siblings followed the order of their births: Miriam, Aaron, Moses. 2. Each deserved to be mourned separately for 30 days. 3. Moses was needed to complete the wilderness march. 4. To bring them safely to the Jordan. And 5. At least to see the promised land. 29. 30 days. A 30-day period of mourning was also observed when Moses died, Deuteronomy 34:8. According to Levine, the priestly school established a symmetry between the death of Moses and the death of Aaron. Ashley notes that the normal time for mourning is 7 days. Genesis 50:10, 1 Chronicles 10:12, thus indicating Aaron's importance. Although in traditional Jewish custom, Orthodox Jewish custom, there is a 7-day period of mourning where you're not allowed to do certain things, and then at the end of 30 days, you also kind of it's also like a different period, and then the end of a year is another period.
Is there anything special for persons designated prophets, priests, or in some other way spiritually important?
I don't think that. I mean, according to this comment, it seems that 7 would have been the regular, and 30 was applied because he was important, and then only later did they start saying like you mourn for 7 days, and then 30-day mourning period is just like less severe, and then 30 days you go in like I think the end of 30 days you do like the where you go back to the cemetery and maybe put the headstone in. I don't know if that's a thing. Or at least that's what it's called, but I don't know if they actually do it. But they go to the cemetery and they say their Kadesh. Yeah, and then the end of the year is the end of the period of being a mourner. During the year, they don't go to weddings and listen to music, and what else? So kind of they say a special prayer for the whole year, and I think it's kind of it. That you're a mourner for a year, but there's special rules for the first 7 days, and then the first 30 days is just like a commemorative period.
Fair enough.
All right. So Matt, you want to read 21?
The whole of 21?
Firstly,
is
I
there
think we should actually read up through verse 9, because that's where we're going to be done with the serpent. And then the rest we can read all in one, I think, just to get through it.
Yay, serpents!
Yeah, exactly. Your favorite things.
So 1 through 9. Let's go.
These are a few of my favorite things.
When the Canaanites, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, then he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. So Israel made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. The Lord heard the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites. Then they utterly destroyed them and their cities. Thus the name of the place was called Horham. Is that how you
Homa.
pronounce it?
Horma.
Horma.
Yeah,
Homa.
forgive some of my pronunciations. Then then they set out from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea and go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient because of the journey. The people spoke against the Lord and Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food, no water, and we loathe this miserable food. The Lord sent fiery serpents
Is
among
there
the
no
people.
food, or do they loathe the food?
Is that what I
Is
said?
there no food, or is it miserable food?
I mean, how long have they been eating the manna and nothing but the manna?
Well,
It's as good as nothing.
well,
Yeah.
the word that is used is lechem, which could refer to either bread or food, and the JPS uses bread for this first instance of lechem. Although in the second instance, the food is also lechem.
Yeah, in the Hebrew it's both. But they translate it as there is no bread. We've come to loathe this miserable food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really
Okay.
into
The
it.
Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people.
Fiery
They-
serpents.
Fiery serpents. So that many people of Israel died. So the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned because we have spoken against the Lord and you. Intercede with the Lord that he may remove the serpents from us. And Moses interceded for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on the standard, and it shall come about that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, he will live.
For it's genocide.
Oh,
Wait,
God's
one
gonna
more
do
verse.
what kind
another
of-
genocide.
Wait, did you read verse 9 or did you
One-
read
one
What
more
kind of
verse.
toxicology? What kind of toxicology works by
Oh, yeah.
looking at it?
one more verse? Sure.
One more verse. And Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a standard. And it came about that if a serpent bit any man, when he looked to the bronze serpent, he lived.
Yes,
There we go.
there we go. So the big thing about this is this. I'm actually gonna pull up the short discussion that we had in the Discord, not that long ago, right? I remember that I forget who it was, but they asked Tomer and I for some clarification on these verses. So I'm just gonna pull up the the things that we said. Well, the question was asking about if this was connected to the rod of Asclepius. It's not, but it seems to be based on an Ugaritic or Canaanite practice of snake charming. They might stem from the in the Bible. It seems like an etiology for a later cultic practice. And then Tomer also noted that he read that the source could have been from the treatment of guinea worm disease, where you use a rod to pull out the worm. So
Yes.
yeah, the idea here, either way, as this etiology would make more sense, but where it says fiery serpent, so that is the word that means like fire, fiery. It's also in Isaiah 6, but
Yeah,
As a sentence.
the seraphim. The word is seraphim.
Yeah.
yes,
Like seraphim.
and although Alter translates it as viper serpents, so
Yeah, I mean, I also have a comment on this. The versions also vary on this word.
Who's the pretty danger noodle?
There's a fiery serpent on the screen.
Matt.
This one's
who's your
actually called
pretty-
Lilith.
I
Oh,
don't think
my
that
pretty
one's fiery. I don't
baby.
think that one's poisonous.
It's also ginger.
Oh, she's my baby and she'll kill you. Good girl.
All right. All right. So let's do this commentary quickly. Verse 1: the Canaanite king of Arad, Hebrew Hakanani Melech Arad. Modern commentators noted the difficulty of this passage. The term Hakanani is gentilic, and it usually refers to the collective Canaanites, as in verse 3. And so the Hebrew reads the Canaanite king of Arad. Ashley proposed reading it as Melech Arad Hakanani, the Canaanite, king of Arad. Milgram and Licht wrote that king of Arad is a gloss, with Milgram noting that the term for lived/dwelt in the Negev, Yoshev HaNegev, refers to a people or a community, and that the king is omitted in the rest of the passage, with only the Canaanites being mentioned, without any word about the king. Therefore, they propose to omit the king of Arad and to read it, the Canaanites who dwelt in the Negev. Atharim. The Targums Aquila and Aquila.
Symmachus.
Okay.
Yes.
And
they're Greek
Symmachus.
Symmachus. They are Greek translators of the Old Testament.
Aquila and Symmachus read the Aleph in Atharim as a prosthetic and thus read it Tarim, spies. Septuagint and Sadia Gaon, followed by Licht and Levine, understood Atharim to be the name of a place. Ashley writes that if this is a proper name, it was an unknown road from the south towards Arad, a road that Israel may have taken from Kadesh Barnea to Mount Hor. Verse 3, gave the Canaanites over to them. Hebrew Bible literally reads, and he gave the Canaanite. Septuagint and Samaritan texts add into his hand. Licht writes that it's not clear if this clause was original to the Masoretic text or that it was added in the versions because it's implied. Ashley adds into his hand is in his translation, citing Gray, who points out that the same expression occurs in verse 2. Okay. Verse 6, venomous snakes. That's what the NIV says. Hebrew, hanachashim hasrafim. Literally, the seraph snakes. The root shin or sin resh fe means to burn, and thus probably refers to the snake's bite. Septuagint says deadly. The Vulgate says fiery serpents. Targum Onkelos renders it as consuming, and Peshitta as destructive. So yeah, it could just mean like fiery in the sense that they were venomous, or
They would kill you and consume you.
Verse 9, a bronze snake. Milgram writes that this is an instance of homeopathic/sympathetic magic, defined as the belief that the fate of an object or person can be governed by the manipulation of its exact image. This type of magic is attested in other places in the Bible. For example, bitter water cured by bitter wood and salt in Exodus 15:25 and 2 Kings 2:21. He further writes, the homeopathic use of snakes is a distinctive feature of ancient Egypt. A serpent-shaped amulet was worn by the living to repel serpents, and also by the dead, often mummies, to ward off attacks by serpents and other reptiles in the netherworld. Thus, at the time of Moses, the belief prevailed in Egypt that images of serpents would repel serpents as well as heal wounds caused by them. And it is likely no accident that a copper image of a snake was found at Timnah, the copper mining region near Elath on the Red Sea, dating from between 1200 and 900 BCE. In other words, we have a copper snake that is similar to the one fashioned by Moses and that originated in the same locale at approximately the same time. Okay. Verse 14, the book of
Wait,
the
I don't
wall-
think
Oh,
he
no, we
read
haven't
verse
done that yet.
14.
Yeah.
No, we're getting there.
All right.
All right. So at
Yeah,
face
did you have
value,
something to say about that?
It doesn't make sense without Jesus.
No.
There's
It's the
snakes
snake on the-
everywhere.
it's a snake on a
Are snakes-
cross?
If you look upon, you lift it up, a pole lifted up, in the form of a snake, a brazen serpent. And if you look upon him, then you'll live. You won't die.
Okay, Asherah
so
poles. All right,
simple.
like
Asherah
But
poles.
even the Jews are going to say, "Oh, well, this isn't exactly
Asclepios.
happened. It's actually it's a homeopathic medicine. No, it wasn't lifted up.
the
It was used to
most
poke and
homeopathic
pull
thing
out
I've
snakes
ever
out of the
heard of.
people. It's all nonsense. It doesn't make
If
sense.
you were to
without
connect it
Jesus.
to Jesus, you would have to say that looking up at Jesus protects you from men.
Oh, is that
Right,
the way
yeah,
to
that's
keep
true.
them away?
There you
Okay,
go.
where's the
There you go.
crucifix?
Accurate.
A snake, so
Bloody
That's why-
creepy
I think-
bastards.
Or maybe it's
Where
or
is
maybe
it?
it protects you
still
from
strange.
from
It's already really
what they call
strange.
I
It's
agree. It
less
is strange.
with-
But
It's
if you
already really
remember,
strange. You guys would agree.
yes, in the
It's
King's
less strange
narratives.
without. It's less strange with Jesus. The mystery
Except
of how
that
Christ became
you
sin
were
for us.
completely
How
correct.
Christ became sin for us. The snake is a symbol of sin. Look around you, Arn. It's a symbol of sin.
Okay, well, it is.
You were
Hello,
completely correct,
world.
except
Look
for
at what's
one
going
word.
on here.
The word
Here's
out.
an example of
You said it doesn't make sense without Jesus. You take out the word out, and then it's perfect.
Okay. Okay.
It doesn't make sense with Jesus, because Jesus himself doesn't make sense. No
Yeah,
aspect
Ernest.
of Christianity makes sense.
You know,
Okay.
Now-
Doesn't
now-
make
you can
sense
say, "Oh, this
with
was written in
or
a different
without
time,
Jesus.
and this actually
It
means
was.
this," and what they should have.
It wouldn't
written was
matter
this.
what
No,
time it was written.
simple.
Totally does.
Looking at it and going, "This is
Nah.
Jesus. This was made.
Who needs context
It
when
makes
you
sense
have
with
Jesus?
Jesus."
I agree. Just look at the story of
Prophecy.
Dracula. You show a crucifix to him, it works. That means that Jesus is a vampire.
One-
Who needs
Okay.
grammar? You have Jesus. Jesus
Right. There's a
available
lot I
for
can say on
3
that.
easy
All
payments
right, let's
for
keep going.
Hold my
$19.95.
tongue and let's keep going. Matt,
let's
would you
go.
like to continue reading, or should I take it back?
Yeah, no, I'll continue reading.
Sounds
As long
good.
as you don't mind some of my mispronunciations. Where was I?
I don't know. The accent that you've got, it makes me feel like I'm about to watch a fantasy movie.
True.
Now, the sons of Israel moved out and camped in Oboth. They journeyed from Oboth and camped in. Maybe I should have let you. read.
Iye ha'avarim.
Yehabarim in the wilderness, which is opposite Moab to the east. From there, they set out and camped in Wadzid.
Wadi
Go on.
Zera.
Wadi Zida. From there, they journeyed and camped on the other side of Aron, which is in the wilderness that comes out of the border of the Amorites. For the Aron,
Wait, they camped on the other side of hemorrhoids? What?
the
Arnon.
Amorites is the on the
Yeah.
okay, right. It's the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore, it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord. Wahab. Okay.
Wahed.
Maybe you read 15 for
I got
me.
you. I got you. That's all good. Yeah, I'll take it over. Try to power through it because it's all part of the same narrative here. So yeah, therefore it is said in the book of the battles of Yahweh against Waheb in a whirlwind and the wadis of Arnon and the cascade of the wadis that turns down toward Ar's dwelling and clings to Moab's border. That's the quotation. And from
What
there,
verse are you on?
the 15.
15.
15.
Are you reading the right book? It sounds like the Lord of the Rings.
Don't be silly. The Lord of the Rings is much better written, has better dialogue, characterization, development of the plot, everything. It's
I'm
in
about to get
every
into
way
it.
superior.
About
It's
to get
even
into
got better music.
Avatar is real.
Okay, go ahead.
And from there to Be'er, which is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, "Gather the people that I may give them water." Then did Israel sing this song: "Rise up, O well, sing out to it. Well, that captains dug the people's nobles delved it with a scepter, with their walking stick." And from Midbar to Matana, and from Matana to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley that is in the steeps of Moab, by the top of
Sense.
Pisgah, looking out over the wasteland. And Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, "Let me pass through your land. We will not turn off. We will not turn off in field or vineyard. We will not drink well water. On the king's road, we will go until we pass through your territory." And Sihon did not let Israel pass through his territory. And Sihon gathered all his troops and went out to meet Israel in the wilderness. And he came to Jahaz and did battle with Israel. And Israel struck him down by the edge of the sword and seized his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok to the Ammonites. For the border of the Ammonites was strong. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel settled in all the cities of the Amorite, in Heshbon and in all its surrounding villages. For Heshbon is the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and he had done battle with the first king of Moab, and he took all his land from his hand as far as the Arnon. Therefore do the Rhapsodies say, Come to Heshbon, let it stand built. May the city of Sihon be unshaken. For fire has come out from Heshbon, flame from the town of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the notables of Arnon's high places. Woe to you, Moab, you are lost, O people of Shamash. His sons he has turned into fugitives, and his daughters to captive state, to the Amorite king Sihon, and their mastery is lost. From Heshbon to Dibon, we wrought havoc up to Nopah, which is all the way to Medeba. And Israel settled in the land of the Amorite, and Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its surrounding villages and dispossessed the Amorite who was there. And they turned and went up on the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out to meet them in battle, he and all his troops at Edrei. And the Lord said to Moses, do not fear him, for into your hand I have given him all his troops and his land, and you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwells in Heshbon. And they struck him down, and his sons and all his troops, till no remnant was left, and they took hold of his land. And that is the end of chapter 21.
I say that.
Yay, genocide!
I say that I should have been allowed to read chapter 19, not chapter 21.
Yeah,
Fair point.
I think that should have been how it went. Yes.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Genocide.
I was just joking.
All right. So, yeah, we quote in verse 14. We're going to quote from the Book of the Wars of the Lord. This book is mentioned only here. According to Ibn Ezra, this was a separate book in which the wars of the Lord on behalf of his servants were recorded. Ashley writes that the well song, verses 17 through 18, could also be from it. Nachmanides suggests that verses 27 to 30 were also from this book. Ashley writes, the citation is obviously fragmentary. It begins with a direct object, waheb in sufa, but has no verb. The fragmentary nature of the text may have to do with its use in the passage. To have included the verb would have made the song refer more definitely to warlike action, which is clearly not its purpose. Dwayne Christensen has offered a reconstruction that has Yahweh as its subject and contains verbs referring to God's action in war. While possible, this reconstruction is less suitable to the purpose for which the citation is used than the present, admittedly obscure text. So verses 17 through 18. This is the Song of the Well. According to the Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 31a, it was sung in the temple every third Sabbath afternoon. Yeah, I don't know if I don't think there's any tune for that. That's traditional, passed down or anything like that. It begins with the same words as the song of Miriam, but it's the rest is different, and I don't recognize it as a song. 23. Yahaz. Milgram writes that according to Eusebius, this place lies between verse 23.
Yes.
Is it verse 23?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Between Madava and Dibon, and that the Misha stele confirms its proximity to Dibon. Oh, okay. He fought with Israel. Levine comments, like the king of Edom in Numbers 20, 18, and 20, so too Sihon, the Amorite king, refused the Israelite passage for his land. But whereas the Israelites turned away after being confronted by the Edomite forces in Numbers 20, 21, they were compelled to engage the Amorites in battle since they had no alternative route of access to the Jordan. Verse 24, as far as the Ammonites, because their border was fortified. Hebrew Bible reads, to the sons of Ammon, for Ez borders the sons of Ammon. Milgram writes that the term Az, okay.
Yeah.
Milgram writes that the term Az should be inserted between as far as and the Amorites, and so it reads as far as of the Ammonites. He writes that the accidental omission of Az can be explained as a haplography of Ad, as far as. Right, because they're very similar words. Two letters, and the first letter is the same. Verse 25, and all of and all its surrounding settlements. Hebrew Bible reads, and all its daughters. Targum, Vulgate, and Peshitta read villages. And Levine comments, the Hebrew bat, daughter, also in the plural banot, serves as a botanical term meaning offshoot. Genesis 49:22. In the same vein, the small towns or villages in the hinterland of a major town or in its environs are referred to as banot, as in the case here with reference to Cheshbon. Compare Numbers 21:32, 32:43, and Judges 1:27. What we have in this verse is a record of the settlement of the Amorite cities by the Israelites, including Cheshbon and its environs. Numbers 21 thus correlates with Numbers 32, which in its various parts document the settlement of diverse areas in Transjordan, including Gilead, by the Israelites tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. In effect, this is how the J.E. historiographers cast the beginning of the overall Israelite community in Transjordan.
Yeah.
Verses 27 through 30, Ashley writes that scholars have not been able to agree whether this poem or song is Amorite or Israelite, and when and for what purpose it was written. He writes, although the traditional Jewish view of the song is that it was an Amorite victory song celebrating Sichon's victory over Moab north of the Arnon, the majority of scholars in the 19th and 20th century were often dismissive of this view, and most scholars concluded that the poem is Israelite. This view has most often been coupled with the view that the song is a satiric or ironic taunt of the Amorites. Edward Mayer proposed that the song was intended to celebrate a victory of Israel over Moab, possibly in the days of Omri. See 2 Kings 3 and the Mesha inscription.
Yeah,
lines
the
4
Omride
through
dynasty.
5.
The Omride dynasty was pretty huge, and it's only talked about like
Fair enough.
once in biblical texts. Like there's like one. No,
Yeah,
there's like one.
I think
thing
is
about it.
Omri the first biblical character in that we have any archaeological proof evidence for?
No, David.
Or is it his
It's-
grandfather?
Yeah, David.
Oh, right. Yeah, but I mean, like
David,
direct
yeah.
evidence
Well,
for the
the
person,
direct
thing
not
is,
just
evidence,
the
I think, would
house.
be Solomon's gates, wouldn't it? The 3 gates
Well, I would
attributed
still.
to Solomon.
So if we're talking about time period, like I would think that there is, because just the one thing saying that essentially implicates David as this warlord coming from the house of David, right? I think that's enough to say, okay, there was probably some historical
that was a
warlord named
person.
David. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but House of David means descendant of David. I mean,
right. but
Rome was ostensibly, produced by Romanus and Regulus, but that's neither here nor there.
Remus and Regulus.
Remus and
Romulus
Regulus.
and Remus.
Romus. Yeah, I'm
Romulus,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah. So yeah, I mean direct reference to a person, like.
Mm.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Omri might be the first one. It might be his grandfather, who's I can't remember the name.
Honestly, as people who live in a time where satire can no longer be distinguished from anyone's actual opinion because shit is exactly that fucked up, I have a little sympathy for the scholars who are trying to figure out what's satire and what's original.
Yeah. Although Dillman rejected this view, Banach,
I think
Banach,
Maybe.
Banach
I
accepted
say
it.
Banach, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're reading Hebrew letters, the English is Baentsch. So if it's German, I'm guessing, yeah, Bench.
never mind.
Bunch accepted it, as did Kennedy in a simplified way. This hypothesis requires the exegete to posit that the poem has been misunderstood and misapplied in the text itself, as well as calling for elimination of the last part of verse 29, which deals with Sichon the Amorite. It would also seem to require that Sichon was a Moabite king transformed into an Amorite by the later tradition. The view of the composition as a taunt song depends upon reading a tone into the poem that is not obviously present. If we do not choose to read this tone into the composition, we are left with the old view that the song is an Amorite composition, which Bud admits is possible, although he does not adopt this view, and Norman Gottwald supports, so also D.N. Friedman, Wenham, and Milgram.
Yeah, I think I screwed up
So-
there a bit. Sorry.
So does also,
So also,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Verse 30, Milgram describes this verse as an insoluble crux, and Ashley writes that it It's corrupt in nearly every word. So verse 30 was, yet we have cast them down utterly, Cheshbon along with Dibon. We have wrought desolation at Nofah, which is hard by Medava.
That's the rendition of the JPS, but it says there's a footnote that says meaning of verse uncertain and alternatively.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
it's-
meaning of
when
verse
you
uncertain.
read-
Alternatively, their
Yeah, when you
dominion
read the
is
Hebrew.
at an end, from Cheshbon to Dibon, and from Nashim to Nafach, which is hard by Medava. Oh, I see. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah,
that's weird.
it's a yeah. When you try to read this in Hebrew, it doesn't really.
Vaniram Ovad Cheshbon. Oh, Vaniram Ovad Cheshbon ad Dibon. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Why
I mean,
is Asher translated as hard?
I haven't really gotten into depth about this verse
Asher
because
ad
I knew
Medava,
that
which is hard.
I knew that
by Medava.
I knew that Lawrence wanted to us to get to do this quickly. So
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah.
All right, 33. Og, king of Bashan, actually comments, no extra biblical record of this king is known. It is possible that he was not considered Amorite. Deuteronomy 3:11, Joshua 12:4, 13:12 call him the last of the Rephaim. It is a matter of debate whether the term Rephaim is an ethnic or a descriptive term. Sunken, i.e. powerless one. The Rephaim are connected with the Anakim, the giants of pre-Israelite Canaan. Deuteronomy 2:10-11. In this regard, Deuteronomy 3:11 includes a note that Og's huge bed, about 13.5 by 6 feet, was on display in Rabbath Ammon. If the size of his bed is accurate and reflects his size, he must have been a frightening opponent. So, I did want to say, okay, no, I'll finish because there's a bit more about Og. And verse 24, Targum pseudo Jonathan adds the following. And it was, when Moses saw Og, he trembled before him, stricken with fear. But he soon answered and said, this is Og the wicked, who taunted Abraham our father and Sarah, saying, you are like trees planted by the water channels, but bring forth no fruit. Therefore hath the Holy One, blessed be he, spared him to live through generations, that he might see the great multitude of their children and be delivered unto our hands. So this character, Og, King of Bashan, is has a lot of like extra biblical stories about it, and I don't think he's mentioned at all in the Quran, but he is in outside Arab Muslim traditions, and a lot of the stories that they have kind of are the same stories that are in the Midrash or the Talmud or whatever.
Fair enough.
One of the big stories is
Sorry.
is the story of him picking up a mountain. That's in the next chapter.
That sounds like
No.
Muhammad will
Not in the
Muhammad will
Bible
go
at
to the
all?
mountain kind of a thing.
Is this what's supposed to have happened? Is this just commentary on what's happening right now?
Sorry,
Yeah.
someone picking up a mountain. Yeah, I don't remember that in the Bible.
Okay, so it's not in the Bible. Okay, so yeah, so the story is
Not
that
officially.
that he's like a proper big giant. Like there's a story that he was he's the last of the Nephilim, maybe the Anakim, and he survived the great flood by holding onto the side of the ark together with the giant beast, the Re'em, also known as Behemoth. So like Noah like tied them on the side of the outside of the boat. There is also a story that he was around. He was the one that told Abraham that Lot was abducted. And so
right.
Abraham then went to fight the war to free his nephew.
Mhm.
So that's why he was like.
Because the scripture is not very clear about how he found out about that. It's just.
I think
basically
I
murder.
found this. This actually relates to his death, and I think it's in Bavli Bechot 54b. Let me just check.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Yeah. So I think there's also something about how like when he made fun of Sarah or something about the story where when he said she was gonna have a baby and she was too old or whatever.
No fruit.
Yeah, something. Yeah, you are like trees planted by the water channels, but bring forth no fruit. So this is how he died, according to the tradition. He picked up a mountain, to throw on, and he was so big, he was able to pick up a mountain that would crush the entire Israelite camp. And Moses was 10 amas tall. He jumped 10 amas. His axe was 10 amas, and he hit the giant in the ankle. And
You
and I think
forgot.
there's also something the
You
ants
forgot the
inside
bit.
the
Yeah,
mountain.
that God,
The-
that God.
His giant ox and his giant axe and
Like-
his big blue ox
So-
companion, and
yeah,
And he
Yeah,
dug the
summoned-
Pecos River. I remember this story.
that God
In
summoned.
three-
God summoned into the mountain a whole lot of ants that ate him from the inside.
Ate
and
the
they
mountain
create-
from the inside so that it fell on his head, and so he couldn't like
And
see.
it
and,
created
then
a
that's,
ring.
and then he fell when he got hit in the ankle and died.
Yeah.
why not?
And
there's a
nothing
ancient
in
people,
Zelda is that weird.
I
ancient
just find it
people believed this back then, and P-Town still believes it now.
Well, there's no.
I
there's
don't.
no
I don't
giants
believe that
around.
nonsense.
Well, not necessarily.
That's all
they-
just silly.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You believe completely different nonsense.
But you do believe that there were giants.
I believe the real stuff.
There were giants, though, right? Right.
Well, at least
I
there's
would
some
just
stuff
say
where-
I don't think they literally believed it. It's just that's
Well,
just
yeah.
story. But
No,
it
I
depends
think-
on
yeah.
Of
how
course,
you
I believe there were giants.
Og of Bashan. I mean, obviously, then
How do you? How can you be a Christian and not believe in David and Goliath?
Godzilla
You know,
and Cthulhu.
Okay, but Goliath was
You
like
have
a
for later.
you
Goliath
can
was
have
like
a
a
functioning adult mind.
Goliath was like a half giant, you know, like dwarf. or
Right,
whatever. He
you're
he
absolutely
wasn't
right.
That tall.
You're right. Yeah. Plus, I think the
Um,
word for giant in here doesn't actually mean giant. They happen to be giants a lot of the time, but the point is that the mixture of blood, the reason why God brought on the flood, the remnants of them somehow. And my theory is, and it's getting so popular these days, is that it was passed on by one of Noah's
your DNA
brother-in-laws,
thing?
right? Yeah, it's just
Well, I already told
just a
you
guess,
that the
but-
giants
The
survived
reason-
by hitching a ride.
The reason
Yeah,
we
but that's
don't
just
have
silly.
giants
And
now
that's
is
not
because
biblical.
of my God.
It's not
right?
biblical. It's just silly. What?
The reason we don't have giants now is because of my God, right?
P-Town, what you're
Your snake
proposing
god?
is not
Guys.
new. It's a racist absurdity based on the idea that the wife of Ham was black, and fuck that shit.
Well, to be fair, I don't think P-Town is putting it into modern racial terms quite like that.
No,
like,
no,
tradition
but
that
that's the ancestry of the idea.
Well, isn't the idea that Ham himself was like the ancestor of all black people?
The
not because of-
recessive gene through. I thought that was only me and it's just me trying to make sense of the text.
the giant genes are recessive. That sounds.
According to Kent, Kent
well, because there
Hovind,
is an apparent
Noah
contradiction.
was 12 feet tall, so he was a giant. That's what Kent Hovind says.
You have the
I am
Nephilim.
not drunk enough for this
You have
shit.
the Nephilim, and then you.
Well,
have
that
the
explains so
scripture
much. It
says
was
they're
so
thereafter.
easy. If he was 12 feet tall, it was so easy for his kids to look up his skirt.
Yeah,
Uh,
and more animals would have
This
fit
is-
in the ark
this is
because
true.
you would have a cubit that was double the length of the one that we think it was.
Yeah, but the animals wouldn't have
That's what-
been bigger because that would not solve the problem.
Oh,
also,
They were
having-
babies.
Lilith, we had a guy on our channel who claimed that dinosaurs were the result of lizards having sex with the Nephilim. So there's that.
I don't want to live on
theory.
this planet anymore.
Ew. Oh my god!
All right. I think
I'm sure you can make an anime out of that, but
Why? There's
making-
nothing more fucked up than this. There's no point to making a goddamn anime.
well, not about the actual fucking, but like, excuse me.
You could do that.
But the,
You'll be very popular.
but the,
in
you
that.
know, like the aftermath of like, this
Fuck
is how
it.
it
You
works.
know what?
This
Yes,
is where
let's
dinosaurs
make
come
an
from.
anime out of this weird ass shit. Make all the goddamn money and go buy a fucking island with hookers and blow for all.
Hell yeah, let's fucking go.
Fuck it. I give up.
Wait, was that?
by
was
the
there-
way, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to be in Dallas area?
maybe at some point once I have the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Not in. I might be in the San Antonio area sooner than that, but I don't know how far those are. So
That's a long way.
okay then.
Yeah. Do we have
Yeah.
any?
What are you coming to San
chats?
Antonio for?
For a hookup.
Hey.
I think I misheard that. Can you pronounce that a little better? I mean,
For a hookup, I'm going to have sex.
I didn't mishear it.
It's
No, a
fine
very-
as long as he doesn't spill any beans about his potential partner who may not wish to have their business all over the internet.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Lilith.
might come might come over
If
there
they
for winter.
Men are
We
not
don't
known
want-
for their tact.
If they don't want their affair exposed, they shouldn't have medieval staircases.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
I've
so
had
picturesque.
dinner with Lawrence a couple of times outside of my own hometown. I would love to take
There you
him to one of our favorite haunts in town, should that ever happen.
That sounds fun. Yeah. I mean, if
Yeah.
I'm going to San Antonio, if I drive down, I'll swing by Dallas.
Oh, if you drive down, it'll be a whole day before you get to San Antonio.
Oh, fair enough.
There's a couple of chat. What are they called? Big comments.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got Beth Laria, 81, who offers $5 Australian and says, "Thank you, R.N. Raw, for your great videos and commentary. Did you check out the new Fish Lady Elliott Shrimp Goby?" I did. Just moments ago when I saw this post come up, I looked it up. So there's a new species of fish, and it looks like it's a walking fish that was found in the Great Barrier Reef. So that was interesting. And then
Greatest
the
name.
Unlucky Legume offers $10 and said, "Could
that enough?
P-Town
P-Town.
please hold on?" The Unlucky Legume offers $10 and says, "Could P-Town please explain in detail how he believes the snake on the pole relates to the Jesus story? I would like to hear the point he was trying to make."
I think we kind of did.
Would like. All
discuss
right, that's
that, but-
nice. Thank
okay.
you.
Is the $10 enough?
Can
It's fair. But
I'm going to quote scripture. "And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." You want me to keep reading?
Okay. Could
Is
you
that a
address
better
the
quote?
question
If I keep
now?
reading the Bible, you might melt or something, Lauren.
Could you address the question now?
well, I think he did. But what verse is that?
Besides just scripture itself saying it, I think
Oh,
that it answers some complicated questions that I actually have myself. Like I was trying to say earlier, the idea that not just that the God can have a son, but that this son, this God, can die for us, and quite literally become sin for us. And he's erected on a pole, and throughout the Bible, serpents are used as a symbol of sin. So it doesn't make sense to the Hebrew mind without Jesus. Just another dozen.
It does. I'm not Hebrew. It
examples.
doesn't make sense to my mind either. It doesn't make sense to a rational mind.
So we covered
You're
this.
the
a little bit.
Greek, and then there's the Hebrew according to the scripture. It's
covered
all
this-
nonsense to all of you, but
Yeah.
that's how I make sense of it.
Sorry, the verse you quoted. What was that?
That's the most famous verse in the Bible. John 3:14, but just before that, so that'd be John
3:14,
3.
okay.
John 3:13 is where I started.
I thought that the most
They usually skip the
famous
whole
one is Genesis
lifting
chapter
up
1.
Moses as the brazen serpent.
3:16. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I
So
did
yeah,
forget
I think he did kind of discuss also why further, like in actually more detail. I think like earlier on, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah, go back. I did forget to mention that I'm almost sure that the Jewish traditional explanation for why that worked, like how that makes sense, is that by looking up at the serpent, so people would have been bitten or whatever, they'd be like lying on the floor, whatever. They would have looked up at the serpent. They would be looking up, and so therefore they would be reminded that it's God who gives. They would like see the heavens or whatever, and they would be reminded that God gives healing, and that's how they would heal.
That's horrible medicine.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, it's
I
better
guess I
than the
take it a little
homeopathic
more.
idea, I guess.
I guess I just take
It's a
it
bit
a little
weird,
more,
really,
a little
isn't
more
it, though?
literal.
Doesn't it? Isn't it like? I mean, maybe maybe I'm wrong, but isn't it like you're looking to the serpent to save you? So that's your savior. So you're looking to an idol.
So
Yeah.
again, so what actually happens in history is someone has to destroy this serpent because people actually start worshiping it. But because the point of it though is for prophecy, and so that God is the one that heals them. It's just a tool, a mechanism, so people actually do start worshiping this thing. I think it's in Scripture as well, right, Lawrence? And then they have to destroy it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
it
when they
is.
destroy it, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's most
destroy it later
probably-
as an idol, which means that God actually created an idol for his people knowingly and deliberately in direct contravenance of the second commandment. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image of anything in the heavens above or in the earth below or the waters beneath. Deliberately, explicitly violates his own law, creates an idol, and then punishes his people for worshiping the idol that he created in the way that he told them to do it, because nobody failed like God.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot what I wanted to say. Yeah, there is idea that some people think that the snake on the pole probably might have been an actual relic, and then this is more of a story explaining that it actually is.
Well,
from
are we
God
talking
and
about a
not an idol.
caduceus here? Am I
No.
missing?
So there
No,
is
we're
a
not.
difference between
It's close, but it's not.
the Caduceus.
Okay.
Is it the Caduceus?
Well,
The rod of
Caduceus is the
Asclepius.
name of Hermes' staff, but then there's also the rod of Asclepius, which
Yeah.
is similar, but still kind of different. I think that one has like a single helix, the other one's a double helix. I think,
Yeah,
or no,
the
not
rod
a-
of Asclepius
but
looks
they
more
have a
like
different-
the biblical one, but it's
right. Yeah, it's just the rod with the thing instead. Yeah. So they are slightly different staves, but yes, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably an ideological narrative, as in they had this this snake worshipping cult, basically, which we do have at least in Kings, the record of it, the thing being destroyed. So then
Yes.
this story serves as like an origin story for that actual one.
It's kind of interesting because it's something I also observed in Christianity with its treatment of John the Baptist. There's like, desecrating what the cult is actually about, but also throwing them a bone. No, this snake image was really intended by God. So you weren't totally wrong, but also you did it the wrong way. So God had to kill you all, but not all of you. But, you weren't sort of half right, kind of the way that John the Baptist's disciples were grandfathered into Christianity via he was the messenger, yada yada yada.
yeah. So we've kind of had two similar stories, one after the other, more or less, with the pole with the almonds, and now a pole with a snake. Wait, what?
Yeah, we've had two polls. I agree with you.
These nuts.
Back to back.
Okay.
God's into double penetration with these nuts.
So did we have more
No.
commentary, or was it
No.
all?
No.
Let's tap out.
Okay. So if anyone has any closing comments on the chapters that we have read today, anyone?
God loves
yeah.
you. Watch out
That's
for
enough.
Tomer, keep an eye on the Red Heifers for me over there in Israel. All the Christians are praying for you guys, and as well as all this, innocent people over there.
Yeah,
Gaza
so
and
all these
Israel.
people writing letters to Santa and or wishing upon a star don't really give me that much comfort. So God is supposed to know everything. He's supposed to know everything that's going to happen in the future. So he already knows whether you're going to pray or not. He already knows whether he's going to answer you or not. So there's no need to pray. Well, the reason to pray
Like
is
bring
because
you
there
back.
is no God. and you have to do the make-believe thing of constantly
no.
talking to somebody that isn't there. And if you talk to an imaginary being that isn't there long enough, even if it's a volleyball, it will eventually start talking back to you.
Now, maybe God just likes it when they beg.
Don't we
In
all?
fairness, with
Probably one of
the
those.
holiday season coming, I would like to inform all the good little girls and boys and Nieblings of various identities out there that Santa exists and in fact lives in Canada. His postal code is ho, 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 because that's how we do it, letter number. So you can write to Santa Claus via North Pole, Canada, ho, 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 and you will get a response, because Santa is not a massive cunt like Jehovah.
But yeah, I don't know. You just completely disrupted my whole Santa mythology, because now I see Santa Claus as living in a desert wasteland like the Road Warrior, where he's inundated with rattlesnakes.
Sweetie, Canada is big. Ho, ho, ho is way north of me in the icy tundras wherein Santa should exist with his magical elves.
Is it ho 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 or just
Is there
ho, ho?
not a little
just-
tiny,
Ho, ho, ho.
tiny sense, Aaron, that possibly you being surrounded by snakes, decked out in black, with the devil imprinted on your shirt, is any evidence that there is a God that exists at all?
Absolutely
Hellfire.
not
Maybe-
even the
maybe-
tiniest
Maybe you're
possible
not rebelling.
possibility.
The
So you're just
hellfire.
Right.
rebelling.
There's
You're rebelling
absolutely
against
not-
nothing your entire life.
There's absolutely not anything. Let's go back
Well, I
to something
can't
you
wait
said
to bring
earlier.
you home.
We can let
Can we
everybody
not?
else go.
Can't
We can let
wait.
everybody else go and just have this one conversation. You said there's more evidence for the hocus pocus thing that you make believe than for the actual fact that I can demonstrate, because I have all of the facts and you have nothing at all that can be verified whatsoever. But yet that's what you say is more. This is why I don't believe you. This is why I don't believe any believer. You're all pretending desperately badly.
In fairness, we were trained to pretend on pain of a fate worse than death. So it's something that's very deep in the psyche that we're not entirely conscious of. But Matt, I believe you had a point.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to the end. Read it, like going back to chapter 19, reading Jesus into everything you can find in the Old Testament. I mean, you could do it with anything. I mean, you just look at verse 1 and 2 of chapter 19. Moses is the shepherd leading the people, like Jesus is the shepherd. And then Aaron is like casting magical spells and stuff. So he's like the Holy Spirit, like where in the New Testament, you know, if you receive the Holy Spirit and stuff like that, and then you can go and heal people and do all this stuff. And then in chapter 2, you got the Lord, who's the Father. There you go. You got the Holy Trinity. Prophecy.
No,
Every time
That's
that
right.
comes together,
In
that's prophecy
fact-
over and over again.
I'm
So you can-
drinking my gin with fizzy water from Pure Life. And I would just like to say that pure is for the divine purity of God, and life is because Christ is the life giver, and the image of people is because he made people. And also it's
Water.
lemon lime, which is in fact, you know, a source of vitamin C, which we need for our bodies, which shows that Christ has care for our bodily needs.
God is the
And
sustainer.
so-
I just
I've
need
gotta
that
remind
holy
P-Town of one
vitamin
other
D,
thing.
though.
If we read the horoscope for tomorrow, P-Town and I can both read our horoscopes for tomorrow and then meet again a week later and come up with rationalizations, justification for how the horoscope was correct. It's easy to do.
It's true. Studies,
All right.
80%.
It
Well,
even
anyway,
works
we're
if you
praying for you,
reverse
Romero. We're
horoscopes,
praying for the
Arn.
whole area. Us crazy Christians are praying. You know, we understand how it all works. How you were
No, you don't. You don't
spread out,
understand.
brought
Fuck
back
all.
to your homeland.
Guys, that's not.
All right, I think you're just making him uncomfortable. So let's wrap it up.
All right, let's wrap it up, and I hope to see you guys this weekend. Where we're good for. Let me toss something out here. My wife is talking about how she likes that we can do this thing on weekends or weekdays rather. Weekends always present a problem. Would it be better to do weekdays like this, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, or should we still focus on Saturdays?
I can't make Thursdays
I
on.
mean,
Okay.
I would still prefer. I would prefer the schedule we have now because like my schedule's already like super fucking booked.
me too.
Yeah.
No worries. No worries. Full respect to you guys. All right. So we will see each other on Saturday. Thank you so much.